And we are live. What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another Epic vs. live stream. As you can see, we have a little bit of a panel shift today. There is no Ben joining us, which, for some of you is probably a good thing. And, and we also have Joe and Rolo from Locked and Loaded Latinos joining us today as well. How's it going, guys? Thank you so much for being here.
Hey, thanks for having us. It was awesome getting the invite. We appreciate being here.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's awesome to have you guys here, and we're going to be talking about a lot of awesome things today, like guns and explosions and boomsticks and all that good stuff. So, and gaming, which is another awesome thing. But yeah, as you can see, we also have joining us, as per usual, we have Epic Mike and Disprue.
Don't make it sound so exciting. As per usual, these guys are here.
Well, you guys are the regulars. You guys are the regulars.
Oh.
How else do you want to say? Oh, guys, look! It's Epic Mike joining us. Oh my gosh!
Like applause.
This is an earth-shattering moment right here.
Thank you, Josiah.
Thank you. Know that is exactly how I feel every time you go. Yeah, that's funny. Even if you actually mean it, that is how I feel.
Yeah,
that's what it seems like you're saying.
Yeah, it's bad.
But Disparu, how's it going?
Yeah, it's great for me. I just got a fortnight. I think we got like 4 wins over the time. Nice. And now we get to talk about guns, which as a Brit, I obviously know absolutely loads about. The strangest thing is, I still seem to know a lot more about them than a lot of America.
Yeah,
probably from
true.
Because not only just like video games and stuff teaches you, but then you've got all the people that you see all the corrections. It's like, oh, okay, fair enough.
Well, I have a question for you. This is going to be a litmus test. Does Disprue know more than our House representatives? Do you know what a barrel shroud is?
A barrel shot?
No, barrel shroud.
A barrel shroud?
Or can you at least infer what it is just by hearing that name?
Give me a guess.
You would... Barrel shroud. Is that like there's 2 things it could either be. Either you mean like... I would either say, and I don't think it's this one, like the flash hiders on the end, but I think it is like there's a bit of metal around the barrel, which is like disperses the heat.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes. So go ahead, tell them.
So there was a famous clip of like Tucker Carlson before he was big on Fox News and all that stuff, and he was asking a representative. He asked the same question
on a gun control bill.
Yeah, I think it was the assault weapons ban back then to renew it in the early 2000s. He was like, "Do you know what a barrel shroud is?" And she's like, "Yeah, that's the shoulder thingy that goes up." I'm like, "You didn't even
think the stock."
Yeah, I was like, you didn't even think about like what it could have been. It's literally what it sounds like.
Yes, it's around the outside of the barrel.
Yeah, I was like,
that's the thing. I'm like, either on the end of the barrel or around the barrel.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's totally ridiculous. These people are idiots.
Good thing they're voting on it.
Yeah. Or like Biden talk about AR-14 instead of AR-15.
Yep.
And,
no, my favorite was automatic semi-auto. I'm like, that's gold.
Yes.
Yeah.
Automatic semi-auto.
Yeah. It's the square circle.
We had another politician last week. There was a clip of it going around on IG that had him explaining that stocks actually caused the weapon to become fully automatic. I'm like, no, that's not.
Gosh.
That's not how it works.
Mm-hmm.
You know about the bump stocks?
Yeah, I was like, I was like, I mean,
see, I keep up with the stuff, even though
it's because they can move the gun back and forth like this, and it makes it faster. It's that magical thing that you can do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Joe Rolo, we are trying desperately to get Disparate to come here to America. Just so we can
take them somewhere to shoot guns.
Like,
we heard how lax
we will convert England one person at a time.
when he heard how lax it was, he was like, "What?" Because we're like, "Yeah, just like go out on some two."
I literally just sometimes just step out my door, and there's a tree right there, and I just shoot at it. So
that's the best. Yeah, that's the best. That's the dream right there. It's funny. We had one of Joe's friends a few years ago came from South Korea, and he was like, "There are 2 things that I want to experience in America. I want to shoot guns and I want to go to a strip club." I was like, okay, if that's what you want to do, we'll take you. We'll do it.
I remember he was getting a lap dance and he goes, "I love America."
He's like, "This is why America is superpower. You have beautiful women of every race and you have guns." I was like, absolutely. That's why we're superpower.
America.
It was great.
That's really
so yeah,
funny.
Disparu will give you the gun experience there.
Yeah.
So
yep.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
we might have to kidnap him, but we'll do what we need to do. So
at the moment, it would be smuggle me in. It's not that I couldn't go to Marriage, that I'm not actually allowed it at the moment.
Yep.
Yeah,
very true.
yeah. That's because of
that's because they're so busy letting all the other people in that we don't want here.
Yeah, if I went to Mexico first,
he has to go to Mexico first.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, they'll be like, "Oh, it's fine. That's fine. This is totally fine. Are you voting Democrat? That's good." Yeah. Yeah. So, well, go ahead, Josiah.
I was just gonna say, how are you doing today, Mike?
I'm good, man. I was very excited to have Rollo and Joe on.
That's a pretty sexy little canvas you got in the background there.
Yeah, I know, it's an octopus that toilet paper.
As you're doing it like he's pointing at the wrong side because of the camera. It's like, oh no, it's
yeah, it's my favorite. I kind of love it. He's a good guy.
That's not a canvas, though, is it?
He's a good octopus. It could be. Do you know?
I mean, it doesn't look like a canvas.
It feels like.
To be fair, the other one doesn't look like a canvas. It looks 3D.
No. Yeah, look at that. Yeah, beautiful little thing there.
Screen.
Yeah, to me, it looks like black foam with a printed, like a metallic kind of logo or something on it.
It's pretty. Yeah, I had to move it because I had it like in a different spot and it was all blown out on my lighting. But yeah,
it looks nice.
The person showed up over at my house and
better than your
handed it off. No, well, let's not get carried away here, okay? The octopus wipes my butt for me, so
that's true.
Yeah.
I do like you didn't just get a poster, you got the most battered, crumbling poster you could possibly find.
Yeah. It came with like pre-rendered with like rust and stuff.
Is
like,
it
I don't know.
Oh, it looks like one of the metal ones.
It's metal, but it like came with like rust and stuff on it.
Yeah, it looks like it's falling apart.
Yeah, I saw it and I laughed at it one time like online, and then the next thing I know, like it showed up in the mail, and I was like, "Oh, cool,
that's pretty cool,
nice."
And you were like, "Hey, I'm just gonna put it in my background for
listen if I get
thing that I do."
Well, I mean, what am I supposed to do? Take it down every week? I'm like, you know what? I'll just take that down every week. You never know what's going to be up. I'll just start getting like weird posters and stuff to throw up in the background.
I miss the old backgrounds that was just like a lamp that like blew out half the camera.
Yeah, my lamp. Yeah, my lamp that used to be like right here, and then I had like a fold out like barrier just so you couldn't see my room behind me. Yeah.
Used to be
come a long way.
Dark, like in the Mario Kart streams, it looked like you're in a dark room.
Black
background. If you knew how much I had like light on me too, that was the worst part. Is I had a lot of light going on, and it just none of it like it.
Yeah.
Well,
I used to have an awesome background.
Change it.
I used to have an awesome background like Joe and Rollo, but then I moved and I just haven't gotten around to putting up anything again.
Words and posters
I'm gonna get 2 likes
everything.
And that's it.
Yeah.
Now he has his party lights.
Yep.
No.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The lights always help though, because the lights let you be minimalist. But yeah, like the stuff accumulates after a while. We went back because we had our 100th episode of our show
That's awesome.
a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, thanks. Yeah. Like Jeremy stopped by and we had like pretty much all the people that helped us along the way. So it was pretty cool. But we went back and we looked at our first episode and we just saw like even how our background changed and like how comfortable we were. Yeah.
I was sitting in like a loungy chair, that not an actual proper chair.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. So it's just crazy looking back at that stuff.
Yeah.
He's having a rave now.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
I used to have like a much crappier mic too. I used to use like an old webcam mic, and then I switched to like, what is it? Just like gave me like a Blue Yeti or something, and I used that for a while. Snowball, yeah. And then I was like,
we got to do something about this mic thing going on, Mike.
So then he's like, hey, here's this mic that I use, and I was like, that's feels like it's overkill, but okay. But it's a good mic, so yeah. Nuts,
so what's up with you, Joe and Rollo? What's happening in your lives recently? You've had a lot of stuff going on with joining the Geeks and Gamers team, and
I know,
crazy.
Basically spearheading the Fortnite stuff and just kind of gaming in general. And how's that kind of affected your life and changed things around? So
infected is a good word.
It was really crazy because
we were fans. We were fans and we were premium members and
we knew Ripa. We we had a connection with Ripa that was pretty crazy back in the day. His I guess she used to do a lot of his booking and things like that for his schedule. She was another YouTuber, and she was in our chat all the time. Her name was Caro Brown.
Back when we were just at like 300 subs, like very small.
So she would always be in our chat, and she was like, I was never into guns, but your perspectives are really awesome, and it's cool to see like a couple that shares this like their evolution and all of this and how they came into the Second Amendment community. So she's like, oh, I actually, you know, help Eric out on his show. Do you want to be on his show? And I was like, holy crap, this is crazy. I've been watching Eric for years, just on his YouTube channel and on the Blaze and listening to his music. I was like, yeah, that would be freaking awesome. Because I think we mentioned Eric on one of our episodes, and she's like, oh, so you guys like Eric? That's awesome. So he invited us on, and it was like 3 days before January 6th. And so everything that we kind of talked about was blown out of the water after that. But it was good because we were just supposed to talk to him for like 45 minutes or an hour, and we were there for like an hour and a half, almost 2 hours. So, and it was a great conversation. And then a few months later, one of our friends, he runs a nonprofit called Black Guns Matter. So he was trying to do like a play on Black Lives Matter, but do like the double entendre between like black rifles and, you know, the black community, because he works on, you know, destigmatizing gun ownership in the inner city communities. He's out of Philly. So he has a summit every year called the Solutionary Summit. He brings in, you know, different leaders in the community. And Ripple was one of the guys that he invited and was on a panel with. So we're friends with them, and they said, hey, you guys want to bring your podcast here? Because it was down in Miami. And we're like, yeah, for sure. So we got to sit down with Rippa live for an hour. So it was a big difference because it was having guests in person and having a lot of different people go in and out. So it was,
and we got to meet Lady Rippa.
We got to meet Lady Rippa. They just got married like a few weeks before that. So it was pretty awesome.
That's awesome.
That's really cool. Yeah.
And then a year later.
So we obviously watched the Mario Kart streams from Rippa, and that's how we found out about Geeks and Gamers and like Nerdrotic and the entire kind of like that blanket of the fellowship. And you know, Geeks and Gamers was like the first YouTube channel that, you know, that I really wanted to, you know, give back to, like, you know, become a member and do all that stuff, because I really liked what Jeremy was doing and the perspective with everything, and obviously all of you guys, the team that he's amassed. So played in premium, got to know a lot of the premium members. They're really awesome. I see a lot of them in the chat there. And Johnny was doing a lot of the premium streams at the time. And I kind of mentioned guns one night when we were in chat. And then Johnny was like, oh my God, I'm totally into guns too. And we started going back and forth. And I was like, yeah, we got a YouTube channel. We talk about guns and, you know, current events and even like pop culture stuff that we care about, because we got all this stuff in our background. So we always kind of wanted to bridge the gap between the gun community and the stuff that we care about. So, you know, movies, video games.
Because it is a culture war. As we talk a lot about that on, you know, our show. And that's a common culture, common topic with Neurotic and with Jeremy and Geeks and Gamers. So there really is, you know, there is a connection between what's happening in, you know, the wokeification of our media and Star Wars, and also what's going on in politics and even, you know, in our sphere, which is guns. So we're trying to kind of connect the dots, and kind of just worked out.
I always think of the meme with what's his name? James Franco, where he's at the gallows and he's about to get hung, and it's like first time here. So it's like people now in the entertainment sphere, the gaming sphere, it's like a First Amendment issue where you're dealing with censorship, political correctness, all that stuff. And it's like, well, in the gun community, we've been dealing with the onslaught of being like, well, you guys are evil, you're Nazis, white supremacists, all the stuff, whether you are or not, you know, you're just blanketed into this and you're stereotyped. So we never really wanted to do the Latin thing because I hate, you know, identity politics and all that stuff. But it worked out because of the alliteration. Like Locked and Loaded Latinos was like, it rolled off the tongue well. But a lot of people, like I said, we met guys like Maj Toure that set up Black Guns Matter. For whatever reason, it was a lot of leaders in the black gun movement. They kind of took us under their wing, and they're like, look, we've made like a lot of progress in this community to destigmatize things, but we don't see that like in the Latin American community or the Hispanic community, whatever you want to say. And I was like, well, you know, that's not really what I wanted to go out to do. But I mean, I guess we can run with that and at least show people like, hey, you know, we're a married couple. We like video games. We're not like these typical like old fogey guys that just care about hunting and things like that. It's
and
like
we're not tactical either.
Yeah. Like we're not ex-military or former police officers. We're just like a normal husband and wife that have regular day jobs and work from home. So
that's awesome.
That's really cool. Yeah.
The crossover from the two as well. It's a pretty similar belief. It's the idea that there's someone coming in and it's going, I like in entertainment, I know you don't like this. I know you don't like these ideas and what I'm going to do to you, but I'm going to give it to you anyway, and I'm going to make you conform to what I want you to like.
Yeah.
And obviously with guns, that's why I think there's a lot of crossover between the two, because both people it's just like, I just want to do what I want to do, and you can be over there doing whatever you want to do, but don't come over here and start telling me what I can.
Yeah.
So I think
we always saw kind of the natural thing too with, you know, Latin America. Obviously there's a lot of dictatorships and political turmoil throughout the history of Latin America, and more recently, you know, we've got Cuba and Venezuela, and, you know, especially more recently Venezuela over the last 20 years, you know, we got to see in real time as it collapsed from a prosperous like oil country to now an authoritarian dictatorship that's impoverished. And it was like, you know, if you embrace, one of the first things that all these regimes go for is, well, we got to take away the guns because we can't have any reprisals.
Yep.
So it happened in Cuba, happened in Venezuela, happens to pretty much every country that you see an authoritarian regime come in. That's the first thing they do. And I feel like there's this trauma from the population that they only see, like when you think of Latin America and some of the turmoil there throughout history, the bad people that have guns are either the military and the dictatorship, because it's usually like a military junta or something like that. And then like cartels, you know, criminal cartels, drug cartels, things like that. Or the CIA coming in and dropping weapons and giving them to one of those two groups and causing chaos. So you have this like negative stigma with guns. And so when you come here, you know, we do a bad job of kind of telling people like, okay, you've got freedom of speech here, which you don't have in almost all the rest of the world. And you have a Second Amendment, which means you can have a gun to protect yourself. And that's the real reason for owning a firearm. It's for protecting yourself and being able to be like the fourth, I call it the other check in the checks and balances. It's the people's check against the government, because they can't be tyrannical if they know if we mess with these people, they can cause a lot of problems, or it's just going to be way too difficult. It's not going to be worth the effort. So it kind of keeps them, it's a safety valve that keeps the government from becoming too authoritarian. Yep. And that's, once you tell people that, they're like, okay, so it's not about hunting. I was like, no, it's not even about hunting. They could outlaw hunting, and that doesn't affect the Second Amendment, even though I don't believe in that either. People should be allowed to be self-sufficient. But that's really what it comes down to, you know, personal self-protection and check against tyranny.
Yeah. And the way all of that goes is it like crumbles bit by bit. So you just say no to everything, because otherwise they will chip away and chip away. And it's like, oh, well, hunting, now it's this. And it's like, no, you just say no at the first thing, because they're going to complain whatever you do. So you might as well stop it. Just have them complaining about the least important issue so that all of the more important ones are protected.
Yeah.
Well, and that's kind of what we've seen here is like they'll pass like little things like, oh, get rid of this here, get rid of the big thing a few years ago, high capacity magazines. They're like, well, you don't need to have 37 shots. You only need like 5. Yeah. Like, okay, well, like
what
and
if
then
there's 6?
What if there's
well, if they're big,
like,
hopped up on drugs.
You miss some of it.
Yeah, and
they're like, well, I guess that makes sense. Let's get rid of those. That's fine, and it has been like a systematic chip away at it. But the fact is, like, I mean, guns are deadly regardless. And it just, what they don't realize is you make people that have guns more efficient with guns. They always give the excuse, well, people just go out and buy guns whenever that happens. It's like, yeah, because people, like most people, realize, if they're trying to get rid of these, we probably should have them. And they won't tell you that a lot of people that are buying them are people that probably weren't pro-gun before and realize, hey, the government's taking these away. It's probably important to have some of these,
We saw that in Canada. Trudeau banned handguns, and then what happened that week? People went out in mass and bought handguns because they couldn't get them anymore.
Well, and over the last 2 years, obviously with the pandemic lockdowns and then the riots, a lot of people were like, holy crap, like I need a gun to defend myself, because I'm seeing, people burn down stores in cities and, kill people, which happened. And they're like, yeah, I don't want that to happen. And we've actually seen, the fastest growth is like Black women. I saw an article just the other day, and we've seen that over the last 2 years, but it's like Black women. And they always try to spin it over, like, despite the fact that you're, the chances of you dying to a gun increase by owning one. I'm like, yeah, that's like, it exists. So obviously something could happen with it. It's like, if you own a pool, you may there's a higher chance that you'll drown in a pool. Yeah, absolutely. Because it's there, it exists. So now there's a statistical chance that something could happen. But as far as, is the gun going to do something? Is it going to sprout, wings and fly around and start shooting? No, it's not going to do anything. If you leave it there, it's going to collect dust and eventually rust, and then that's it. Like, nothing's going to happen.
Yep, exactly.
Absolutely. Well, that's
the issue.
Go ahead.
The issue when you get into statistics and stuff is, I think a lot of that is like, because people use it for arm themselves. But what you get if you take those kind of things out is it's almost a dangerous argument to get into, because when you start arguing statistics, they can be manipulated in such a way that they can make them say anything. So I do think when it comes to it is you just keep coming back to saying no, it shall not be infringed. That's it. That's the line. That's because the moment you start entering a debate, you're kind of admitting that it should be moved somewhere, and they'll just push it bit by bit.
The argument that we find really effective, and sometimes conservatives are afraid to go down this path because then you're using kind of the left's terminology against them, is like through Maj, he always has his shirts, all gun control is racist. Because historically here, most gun control was to prevent, Native Americans and former slaves from buying guns and uprising against the people that oppressed them before.
And even further closer in history, like the Saturday Night Specials, like getting banned is because they wanted
cheap guns and
lower
like
income people to not be able to afford guns. And even in the freaking reason we have like tax stamps and things like that, they are monetary kind of like things to prevent people from wanting to get this. And what does that really do? Does that stop people who are really elite from having them? No, absolutely not. It's stopping normal people who might not be able to afford it.
So so that's the argument I always use. I'm like, look, throughout history, it was the government preventing people from owning guns that allowed oppression and people from being able to defend themselves. And you can throw that in there. And then you say, so now you're telling me that people who finally had their rights fully restored and equalized, like in the 1960s, now you want to start taking guns away and removing those rights that people had fought for like 200 years to finally get. I was like, that's pretty much BS, man. Like, what are you really doing? Like, who are the real racist people here? And then they always love to use that argument like, well, when black people and like brown people get guns, that's when there's going to be gun control. And it's like, dude, everyone I hang out with is like black or brown, and they all own guns, and everybody has like AR-15, AKs and all that stuff. And night vision goggles and body armor, and they're running, training sessions and all that stuff.
I remember the first time that we went to SHOT Show, which is like the big annual convention for the gun industry. We were at someone's house in Vegas, and it was just like literally 6 or 7 of us, and we were all minorities, and the TV's on in the background, and ironically a news program starts about gun control and how it's all these they literally said white supremacists, and we look around at each other and there's not one white person, and we all have like, and
everybody's strapped.
Everybody's strapped. There's literally like, they were like helping me out with my AR-15, like how to like better my hold, and I'm just like, we all just started laughing because it's like this could not be farther from the truth about what the community is like.
I mean, they're always going to try to spin their own narrative about things, and I don't like. I encourage everyone to just get more guns. Just I don't care who you are. I don't care what your skin color is. I don't care. Just buy as many guns and as much ammo as you can. There's nothing wrong with that at all. So
well, it's that thing. If you can push a narrative of like the only people that own guns in America are like rednecks and like extreme like right wingers, then you can say, well, why wouldn't you take guns away from those people? But I'm like, as everybody's been saying from the beginning, you're not taking guns away from those people. You're taking guns away from everybody. And if you take guns away from everybody, the government is not going to go, our citizens aren't armed. We should definitely be nice and not start passing laws that restrict their freedoms. I mean, that's the biggest thing. And the fact that we're even in a situation, I remember seeing an argument one time. These two people were debating online about our gun control and stuff. And I'm like, our sitting president, the current president that we have right now, literally said to United States citizens, what do you need your guns for? We have nukes. And the implication of that is terrifying for a sitting fucking president to look at his citizens and go, if you don't do what we want, we'll just nuke you and destroy the whole country. Why are you worried about these guns for? And they were like, well, he's right. And it's like, you don't understand.
That doesn't bother you? Like that's an implicit threat. Like that's like
implicit. It's saying, oh, what do you need that? Yeah, what do you need that baseball bat for? I have a shotgun. Is an implicit threat of, if you use that baseball bat, I'm going to shoot you with this shotgun. So saying, we have nuclear weapons and drone strikes. Like, what do you need those guns for? It's like, okay, but my thing is, if that's the case, you don't need to worry about us having guns.
Exactly.
But once again, the conversation always goes to the most extreme situations. And so every time a shooting happens at a school or at a college or anything, the spin has to be, well, we can't let this ever happen again. And it's like, it shouldn't ever happen again. But if you go around the world, you know, there was a guy just 2 years ago in China, because they don't have guns over there, they went on a stabbing spree in a school. It happens. Knife violence is like skyrocketing in countries that don't have guns.
Yeah.
So you know, and then it comes back to what everybody started talking about, but should have been talking about in the first place. And it's funny that you mentioned, Rolo, like, you know, the conversation about like gun control can be inherently racist if you look at who you're taking guns away from, because also the argument has never been the mental health of these people that are like doing this. Because if you actually break down these people's mental health, a lot of them have really questionable mental health issues and a lot of red flags that were there before it happened and didn't seem to be addressed until after it happened. Then the conversation is, how do we get rid of guns? You know, I've talked about this with Josiah before too. This happened a long time ago, and I think it's the dumbest argument for anything is over here in Michigan, like 5 years ago, this 23-year-old man, 23, so a grown man living on his own, he's hanging out with his buddies, he got drunk, he grabbed a firecracker and he put it on top of his head. And he was playing with his buddies and it blew up, and lo and behold, he died. Imagine that. You put a firecracker on your head, you die. And his mother went to like all these legislators and politicians, and she, in the interview, she says, I know he was a grown man. I know that he shouldn't have done what he did, but something has to be done. And so the conversation was about getting rid of fireworks so that people won't kill themselves with it. But the reality of it, and even the mother admitted, I know that a grown man should not have put a firecracker on his head, but because I'm emotional about it, I think something has to be done. Yeah. And that's what politicians use all the time, is emotions over logic. And that's the like biggest failing thing in America is, oh, well, I feel like something should be done, so I'll just let government tell me what should be done.
I feel like I would say that there's two kinds of people in the world. So you see this after a school shooting, and you saw it. I'm honest about, you know, one of the things that triggered me into becoming an advocate was actually Parkland, because I was near Parkland when it happened that same day, that same morning. I was outside in a park with my baby niece, and I was not strapped, and that guy was running around. He was just down the street from me, and I didn't know about it until afterwards. And then I was like, had this like, oh my God, what if he'd come here? And again, it's like totally in my own head, but that's that thought process of, again, happens with two people. Well, if that ever happens, I know that I want to be ready and be able to defend myself. That's reaction number one. Reaction number two is the lazy way, which I'm sorry if anyone gets offended by this, but actually I'm not sorry, because you are mentally lazy if you feel this way. Oh my God, someone I love died, or someone could have died, or someone I knew died. Therefore, I'm going to blame the inanimate object and not the actual underlying cause. And there's multiple underlying causes to all of these situations. Breakdown of government, bureaucracy, the law enforcement not being, you know, doing what it's supposed to be doing, not following standard operating procedure. We saw that in Parkland. We saw it in Uvalde, you know, and then the even more underlying thing is mental health that we refuse to acknowledge and do anything about in this country. And we, in fact, stigmatize it. I actually know people.
Fathers.
And that too. Like, there's just so many
Mm-hmm.
issues, but the easiest way, the laziest way to handle it is not address those issues and just blame the common denominator. Oh, easiest thing we could do, just get rid of the guns. Well, guess what? Someone's still going to do, if you have evil in your heart and you have mental issues, you're still going to find ways to hurt people. Like no one, I didn't, you know, when it's something I said recently, it's like, I didn't see moms demand actions against, you know, homemade explosives. You know, no one said that after the Boston Marathon. Like, what did we do? We convicted those guys. We blamed them as we should have. And, you know, we went on with our lives. Like, you know,
pressure cookers have to be outlawed. We need pressure cooker control.
No one sat there and blamed pressure cookers. You know, we actually, you know, blame the people who were responsible for this. I don't understand why we do that with firearms.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
it's a case of, even when they're removed from the general population, like if I go down to the Houses of Parliament, there's big massive bricks in the roads that cars can't drive up, everything's gated, there's tons of police everywhere, all of them are armed. And if you go up to them and say, well, it's dangerous out there. You go out there, it's like, we need to be protected from the people out there. Like, well, why? Well, the knife crime's massive. They could do anything to us. It's like, well, we have to be out there, though, where you've banned everything. And the mayor of London came out and said, well, knife crime, it's just part and parcel of living in a major city. And under his thing, knife crime's just skyrocketed.
Yeah.
Because of the laws he's done. And then he's just gone, well, you just have to live with it. It's like, I think you just have to. It's like, no, there is other things that can be done. And of course here, they just ban everything. And every time, like, even, like, if you carried a torch, and then said that torch was for self-defense, you'd get arrested because you're now carrying a weapon.
Really?
So you literally, anything that you are like, if you're carrying around like a baseball bat, it's like you'd have to be going to play baseball and have a history of playing baseball with it. Because if they just thought that you were carrying it just randomly, then they'd arrest you for it. So it's like, this is the thing. Once you get rid of one thing, it doesn't stop. Yeah. It always gets worse.
Yeah. Well, it's like the Dankula effect, where you can't even say anything. Yes. The police will come and question you or arrest you, and it's like, what? I was being an asshole on the internet. Like, I should be arrested for that.
I saw a guy just the other day. He got handcuffed. I think he got arrested afterwards, but the video stopped because he retweeted somebody else, and the somebody else was there next to him, and they didn't arrest him. They arrested the guy who retweeted him. They said, how come you not arrested him? He's the one who posted it. And the guy literally said, well, I've got bigger pockets than you. Like, he was involved in politics. So we then touch him, but we don't like you, so we're arresting you. That's and crazy. What they said, the crime was, he'd caused anxiety. Someone had phoned them up and said that the retweet had caused them anxiety. And so they arrested him. So, no, when you've got a government and their job is to make laws, they just make more. All the time.
Exactly.
So you've got to say no to everything.
That's kind of the interesting dynamic between like personal freedom and personal responsibility, and how, even going back to like the story with Mike and you talking about, the idiot with the firecracker and all that stuff, and then the mother trying to get firecrackers banned and all that. Like, that's what happens when, when you are willing to sacrifice personal responsibility in order for more government control over your life. And we're seeing that happening throughout the country with all sorts of issues. Even the whole abortion issue is largely based on the fact that people don't want to take personal responsibility for the decisions that they make. And the more that you continue to sacrifice your personal responsibility and your personal freedom, the more the government is going to step in and, put more laws on you over everything that you want. So personal responsibility, and personal freedom, it's dangerous. There's a level of danger that comes with that, but that's just the price you pay for it. So
but people used to be more mature and responsible, and it was because they had, like, there was a picture recently, I think he was he was fixing an antenna or something, and he was on top of a massive building. It didn't have a safety rope on or anything. And there was another one, I think it was just a ski lift. It was like, this was the safety in the 1960s because they didn't have any. I was like, yeah, but everyone was fine. We got through it. And it was like, oh no, if you don't have complete protection against everything, people just die all over the place. Never happened because people exercised their own intelligence and responsibility, and that made them better people.
How many stories,
like a child, I say.
Yeah. How many stories have we heard of people that used to have like gun racks in their trucks when they'd go to high school back in the day, and that everybody had guns. And then if somebody would threaten the school, it would be like, really? You're going to come shoot our classroom up? Like, we're going to be there with our guns and we're going to keep you from doing that, asshole. Like, it's not going to happen. And that should almost be the response. It should be, it's kind of like, I guess, the frontier response of like, no, if some bad crap is going to happen, we're all going to get together and make sure. That's the militia mentality, in my opinion, that the community gets together and we're like, we got to take care of this problem or else nobody else is. Like, why would anybody else come help you? And that was also what happened back then. Help is always far away. Now, because we have the internet, we can see things happen as they go. We do have a chance to prevent things, even though we don't a lot of times. But even now, even if a police officer is down the street in the corner, there's nothing faster than you yourself in the moment being able to protect yourself. Because even if the cops want to be there, and if they weren't cowards, it's like, well, we got to drive there, man. It's going to be like 2 minutes. Like, we want to help you out, but we can't do anything about physical distance. 2
minutes. I think the average is like 5 or 6.
Oh, I know it is. It usually is. And then, the more rural communities you're in, even a city could be tough because, maybe physically they're like a block away, but you're in a high-rise building and somebody broke into your apartment or is threatening you. And
they're not going to get there in time.
Yeah, they're not. So you need to be able to help yourself.
Yeah, and you know, the majority of mass shootings happen in gun-free zones.
Yep.
Like the vast majority, like it's like
94% of
94%. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's
And
insane.
there's a reason
So,
for that. I still
yeah.
there was a video of in Texas, and I don't know whether it was like a wedding or something, but someone drives up in the car, gets out, and there's just a wall of people. And they're just all doing, and it's like the problem was solved in like 5 seconds. Like, and I think their even attitude was, "Why did you do this in Texas?" It was almost like insane that you would consider it. So,
well, and the fact is, like, you know, with people that actually, when you own guns, and the actual push in the conversation should be like responsible gun ownership, which is always important. You should know about trigger safety and the gun laws and, you know, all that stuff. When you actually do that, most people will then be responsible with their guns. You know, the problem with like even gang violence and stuff like that, a lot of these guys are just going out and buying guns for the sake of buying guns because that's what they're supposed to do. But like, if you actually had you know, the attitude around guns became less about banning them or not banning them or whatever, and they started becoming tools that were like a normal part of the American system, you would have a lot more people stop to think about the reason behind why they're buying a gun and why they're using guns. But because they've become, you know, so they've become so touchy of a subject, you have people that will buy them in response to things, or you'll have people get them in response to things, you know, and it's like the people that are gathering guns or like buying a plethora of guns like that, you either have somebody that's responsible and gonna use it for the right thing, or you have people that are using it for the wrong things. But the reality is, the more people that are using it for the right things, the better, the more safety it is for everybody. You know, like you know, you said, Joe, like that one time you're like, there's a guy right down the street and I wasn't strapped, and it's like that sheepdog speech that the general gave about, like, you know, the one time you find out that you didn't. But the thing is, if you know that 5 other people in that park probably are armed, you know, you can say like, okay, maybe I didn't today, or maybe I can't get to my car in time, or whatever the reason is. But, you know, in a world where it's a normal thing, people are less scared of it. But they don't want it to be normalized. They want it to be this, like, they want to make it seem like it's this weird extra thing. I'm like, I've been in places, you know, I have a group that I hang out with, and my buddy owns like a shop, like a hobby shop, and he sells like 40K stuff. And the second time I'd ever went in there, I was sitting down at this table and I was talking with a bunch of their friends, and there were like 7 other people in this room with me. And I realized at one point, because they were all ex-military or ex-police or, you know, ex-corrections and stuff, every single one of them had a gun on them.
Yeah.
And the response from my feeling wasn't, oh, I'm uncomfortable, they all have guns. I was like, I'm like in the safest place in this town right now. Because if anybody walked in for any other reason, that dude's like, they're done. They're toast.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
If you want like the vision of what the alternative is, there was a guy, because obviously the bad people aren't going to stop wearing things. So this guy was in central London. He was on like London Bridge, right in the center, right back near Parliament and everything. And he had, so any police response plan, this would have been the fastest thing. Guy had a machete, started running around just attacking people at random. And like there was no police in sight. The reason why he was stopped, one guy had to grab a fire extinguisher off the wall, and another guy grabbed a it was a big fish. It was like a tusk or a fish, and it was like he's poking him at a distance when the other guy's trying to hit him with the fire extinguisher, and they take the guy down. But it is the case of people are willing to defend like their city, but if you take all of their tools away, you end up with like stupid situations like that. They're grabbing random pieces of equipment off a wall, and then it makes everyone more at risk.
Yeah,
And
but you see, isn't it sad? Yeah, that in that situation, like, let's look at Uvalde. What happened there? There were parents, and even one of the cops wanted to go in there, and it's like, we have to end this now. And they're like, no, you can't do it. And it's like, if you cowards aren't going to go in there, let me take my chances at it, at least at this point. And that's the difference. You know, if one of those parents had happened to be there, like, let's say it happened towards the end of the day, and maybe there's a parent in a car waiting to pick up their kid. A lot of people in Texas carry AR-15s. They have truck guns in their car. All of a sudden, they could react to that and run in themselves. And, you know, obviously, there's no warning he's going to kill somebody. A few people are probably going to die in that situation in the first few seconds, but not 20 people, and not people that were bleeding out there for, you know, for more than an hour that could have been saved. You know, how many people there had injuries that they could have recovered from had they gotten first aid right away.
Yeah.
And that's the sad part, because you're also preventing potential parents that may know first aid from getting in there too. So if a parent goes in there, they neutralize the threat right away, you can get first aid immediately. And then when the cops arrive, it's already secured. And it's like, oh, well, now we just have to make sure that now we have multiple people to take care of casualties and make sure that we can, save people's lives.
100%. Yeah. And I mean, and I think that that's one of the biggest failings of that specific situation is that, once again, we had people that could have went in there, and we know you knew that there were people on site that had weapons. And, like the converse, I remember one of the arguments was like, well, the guy was wearing like, tactical armor and stuff like that. I'm like, you know what? I know, I've never been shot in a bulletproof vest, but I know people that have been, and they're like, it hurts.
Yeah.
It does affect you regardless. Like you unload a full clip on a guy wearing a bulletproof vest, it doesn't matter. It still hurts. It still slows him down, still makes him think about the fact that I'm being shot at right now. Nobody wants to be shot at, So there was a lot of things that could have been done. And the thing is, like, even if you do have guns and maybe the parent doesn't have a gun, the guy's not invincible to being tackled to the ground.
You can shoot him in the legs too.
You can shoot him in the leg. There was a lot of a lot of things that could have happened. And the fact is, like, in that situation, obviously the conspiracy thought is, are you just trying to let this happen? Because it's kind of what, the other conversation is, well, we're trying to prevent loss of life, but you didn't.
Yeah.
You caused more lives to be lost the longer you waited. And the more that came out about that, the more it started like exposing how ridiculous the idea of we're trying to preserve life became, because you're not trying to preserve life. Like you're hiding and you're saying we're the only ones responsible, which actually lends itself to the argument that citizens should have guns, because if not, the police might not be there in time, or they might not handle the situation correctly, and more people lose their lives.
Yep.
So
and I think with issues like that as well, you come down to, oh well, I was just doing what I was told, I was just playing by the book. It's like, yeah, but your job is to do the right thing. And so look, if you're not going to go in and you've got a gun and someone else wants to go in, then like in any other situation, people would have been like, well, you should have just given it to him because he will go in. You won't. So at least he can be useful. And instead to actually literally stop them, be like, no, it's my job to not allow you to do that because the book says it. Like over here, the police are literally told, if you're in danger, don't do anything. Like you're not even supposed to regard what happens to anyone else. Don't put yourself in thing. Don't be a hero. Just look after yourself. And it seems like that's what that was.
Yeah, some court said that the cops
There
don't
was the
have
Supreme
any.
Court.
Yeah,
The cops don't have a duty to protect. The
they
citizens.
don't have
That's
any.
it.
Any.
Yeah.
So you
crazy.
now have. So now you have. So now you have people in the government, the same people that wanted to like defund the police and all this stuff. So now you want to reduce police training. So you end up with inferior cops that won't go in there, and that the guys that actually want to do that, they're politically incorrect because they're gung ho about shit. So you don't want those guys, the guys that actually want to do the right thing. We know a ton of those guys that are our friends. The cops were just like, I'm tired of the bureaucratic BS. We can't actually do anything, or we enforce stupid laws that just make people hate us. So it's like, it's a catch to this is not worth it. And I totally understand. I wouldn't want to be a police officer either at this point. But it hurts the society because you've got, let's defund the police. While we also sold them like military equipment over the last few years. And it's like, okay, so you arm them up. Now they're not even willing to use it for good situations where they should. And everybody just sits around, points fingers. And it's like, well, let's just take away guns from the people that actually would have done something in this situation. They're like, that's a great idea. It's incredible.
It's like they're not living in reality. They're living in this idealistic, like, oh, well, if we just pretend evil doesn't exist, then we'll be fine. It's like, no, it does exist. And we're just pretending, that's going to work out. You need to be realistic about what exists in this world and the solutions that will actually help.
Yeah. And again, like kind of what Mike was alluding to earlier with educating people. If you educate people from a young age, this is the United States. You've got the Bill of Rights. The first two amendments are freedom of speech and obviously the right to keep and bear arms. These are really important. These are uniquely American. We should be very proud of these things. And you instill that from an early age so that people aren't irresponsible with guns because they know.
Not just that, then you won't have as many accidents.
Yes, because kids will be like, "Oh, I already know how to handle a gun. I'm not going to mess with that." Or I know, hey, I see a loaded gun. I know immediately how to unload it and make it safe so that everybody else is fine and that everybody can see that this gun is unloaded. And you instill that in people, and it just becomes common sense. you're like, yeah, of course we have guns. And of course, even the kids can have access to guns because now you've made them responsible and you've made them mature, just like back in the day. I mean, we literally went from, we go through like such extremes in society.
We
So
had a society that used to have
child labor, and that we used to throw children in factories and treat them like adults and almost like slave labor, to now like, well, children can't do anything at all.
Well, not just that.
Yeah.
It's like, what? There's a middle ground there.
Right.
Also,
Right.
gun education used to be part of
Yeah.
schooling. Like
Mhm.
I know people that are, alive right now. They're like, yeah, I had gun education in my, in grade school. And now we go from that to, if you're a kid and you eat your Pop-Tart in the shape of a gun, you get suspended.
Yeah.
Like I don't understand how we went from one extreme to the other.
Well, and then the other extreme is, if you're a child, you can choose to be a different gender. You're mature enough to make that decision, but you're not mature enough to handle guns now until 21 or whatever. So I was like, there's a huge disconnect here. Like, because one is a natural right. The other one is like, you're encouraging people to make irreversible damage. Irreversible changes to their lives.
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't understand here.
Yeah.
Like, they're
either children are mentally capable of making those decisions or they're not.
Yeah.
Make up your mind. You can't have
or you can willingly give yourself, sacrifice yourself for your country at like 18 and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
Because guess what? Those 18-year-old soldiers getting guns.
Yeah. Exactly.
Like surprise. Yeah. Like,
they're making the choice to do that, to take on that responsibility of becoming a soldier or whatever else for their country. And so, kind of going back to what we were saying earlier about, like I grew up around guns. I've always been around guns ever since I was like a kid. Like it's just like they've always been around in my family. My dad always taught me how to use a gun properly and everything else. And my uncle, who, was in the military for years and years, and conservation officer and everything else. And so it's always just been around, and I just have a very different mentality from like some of these kids that grow up not around guns. And like I've had friends like that who, when they come over to your house and stuff, they see a gun, they kind of freak out, like back up and stuff. And it's like, it's just a tool. You don't, I can show you how to use it properly, and then you guys can, check it out and shoot it if you want to. And so we are definitely lacking a lot of that in this country right now. And unfortunately, a lot of that just has to do with our entire mentality as a country towards guns these days, unfortunately. So,
well, and it's just so funny. So I know one of the things that you wanted to talk about was teabagging. So this is a good transition right here. So we're worried about, so in a video game where people have guns and they kill their opponents, we're worried that somebody would teabag an opponent. Like, that seems like the lowest of the hierarchy of, if bad things are happening here, I would think that shooting people for no reason, for a reason that's not self-defense, is like, isn't that like the most appalling thing that's going on here? Not the teabagging because you're being competitive.
Yeah,
so
I know.
Like, and we live in a society too where, look, I understand, like, politically, these companies are going to be like, well, we don't want to encourage kids owning guns. But I was like, but you literally are, because our society loves guns. And it's not just Americans. It's like Disbrew said that he knows more about firearms because of video games than some Americans do. That's how all these kids are. They know more about guns than even some people in the military do, because they know about every gun that every country has. If a video game has it in there, they know the calibers they know when the gun was created, they know the magazine capacity, they know the attachments that you can put on it. And it's just absurd because we love it, and we actually instill it in our society, this love for guns and wanting to have cool guns and, having an outlet for it. And that's what video games do. So to not also educate them in the real world thing. So it's like, on the one hand, guns and video games, lots of fun. I love it. We play Fortnite, we play a bunch of shooters. Awesome. It's an unrealistic portrayal of guns in a lot of ways. For most games, obviously there are Sims. You got games like Escape from Tarkov and older Rainbow Six games made by Red Saber that were a lot more realistic. But you want to, teach people, you want to combine both. So it's like, you can have fun with guns and video games. Obviously in the real world, you're not going to go around and do that. It's a defensive tool. So you want to delineate that, but also combine the two. Cause it's like, you think this gun is cool. Like, let's take you out to the range in real life and you get to shoot it. And people are like, this is amazing. And video games let you shoot guns that you can't get anymore because they either don't exist or they're so rare
or expensive.
or expensive that you'd never be able to shoot one. So at least in the game, it's like, well, I can shoot this 50 cal sniper rifle or this obscure gun from World War I that was like an experimental weapon that I'm never going to find outside of a museum, and I get to check it out. So
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely.
Yeah. So so this is I just can't get over this. This is just like ridiculous. But this is what we're continuing to see just happening across the board, where there's always like this continual discouragement of competition and of that kind of I guess fighting spirit that people have and all of that type of stuff. Like they're continuing to try to kill that as much as they can. And it's weird because these are literally like people who make games where you shoot each other, and it doesn't make it. I don't know exactly what the logical through line is with all of this. Like I don't know why Riot is banning Valorant players for teabagging, while at the same time having games where you go around and shoot each other with guns and stuff. I don't know if I'm just missing what the logical conclusion is with all of that or what, but it doesn't make any sense at all. So
I mean, it says it says they literally think it's sexual assault. So the same thing happened in VR.
Yeah.
In VR, people would stand next to you or like make hand gestures and stuff. And like, oh my, someone wrote a big article about how they had to get out of VR and cry. I'm like, well, I'm sorry, but you shouldn't be in VR then. If you can't handle it, go away.
So if that's sexual assault, then everything else that's going on in that game is murder and war. That's what it is. You're actually fighting in a war or you're committing murder. That's what you're doing. So, I mean, this is absurd. So we're going to get to the point where they're going to create something like the Oasis from Ready Player One, but you're not going to be able to do anything in there because they're going to treat it just like real life. So it's going to be like, then what the hell is the point of this virtual space if you can't do stuff that you can't do in real life? That's the whole point. Well, you can only do stuff like skydiving and things like that. Like you can't do anything else.
This just points to just people. Like this is a consistent thing I think that's been happening in the last few years is people are losing their mental strength or something. Everyone's just super weak and then that hurt my feelings, or like that that person who got arrested because somebody got anxiety over a tweet. I don't want to say man up because that's kind of
it is.
But
it's the feminization of games and society.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Joe?
There's two different roles.
You want me to say it?
Yes, you have to. That's what it is.
Okay.
Yeah,
it's the pussification of America.
Yeah. That's what it is. Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah, and
Dave Chappelle called it a brittle spirit, and it's he talks about it specifically in the context of comedy, and that like people can't handle taking jokes anymore. But like, what's crazy is like obviously the player got banned for teabagging his friend, not another player, his friend
who was fine with it. Someone else took offense.
So someone else took offense to it. But this the article that Josiah just shared. The conversation, it was a Reddit conversation between two players or multiple players, two of them which were pro players. This is what's crazy about this. The player that got suspended said to the person that said, "Oh, teabagging is like sexual assault." They said, "I have friends that have literally been raped. I've watched sexual assault happen in broad daylight. It's not something you can compare to crouching in a video game." I was visually upset by this. There were hundreds of thousands of people. Like she was saying, I know what it's actually like to see that happen, and it's not comparable. And they banned her.
Yeah.
Wow.
They're like, no, go ahead.
It's what's been happening with everything. It comes down to, because we just used to call people rude. Like, well, you're doing something I don't like, so that's rude. And the idea was some kind of social pressure to make them stop. But now they've realized that if I take whatever you're doing and use a word which is a bit similar, but it's the worst thing possible. Like we used to be online bullying. Well, that didn't go anywhere because it wasn't severe enough. So now it's like harassment. We trying to make the language as harsh as possible because you're not for sexual assault, are you? They want to make it sound as severe as possible, and that's why they jumped the worst thing. And it's literally just false equivalence all the way down. And you like with the comedy example, it went to, well, you can't say this joke because I get offended, but then because your words are violence against me, I'm now allowed to use violence against you. And it's like, no, you're the one escalating that scenario, but it allows them to do actions which they won't allow you to do against you. And it's just designed to make you stop doing whatever behavior they don't like.
100%.
I also think it's silly because the intention is not sexual at all even. It's it's the equivalent of if you're playing football and you do a dance in the end zone, like, I got you. And then even that's considered. I find that the fact that football players are not allowed to do dances in the end zones because it's bad sportsmanship, that's also weak. It's like, just why can't people just get over whatever this is? I don't even know what this is. It's just, again, it's just a weakness. It's a mental weakness that people just need to get over.
Well, and look, throughout history,
you can't hurt my feelings.
Throughout history, you literally had like gladiatorial combat. You had countries go to war just because the king is getting bored. Like, I just want to take their shit, man. Let's go. So humans have a history of doing this stuff. It's not good. It's just the way it is. So now we have a modern outlet that's basically harmless, and you don't let people like take it out. Like, we want to be competitive. We want to have that spirit of, we like being on teams. We like having groups of people that we all combine forces and we go take out an adversary. Like, that's just our instinct. And you want to like numb that away. And for what reason? I don't understand. That's part of what's also made us stronger throughout history, because it's like, well, I got to prove that I can go do that. And then if you do it, you're like, people are like, holy crap, we actually can do that. Let's go climb the next mountain. Let's go build this crazy shit, even though it might blow up in our face. Like, how many guys throughout history tried rockets or flew experimental jets, and it's like, yeah, it might blow up, but it's like, but if we figure this out, we're gonna really like start some stuff over here. And that's how you gain advancements.
I also think it's like the misunderstanding of like both sides, because it's the fact, like, none of this happened when gaming was like almost entirely men, because men bond in a certain way, and they bond by basically attacking each other and taking the piss out of each other.
Yeah.
Like, the stuff they will say to about their friends is probably way worse than they'd ever say to someone who wasn't their friend. And that's just normal. And so that's where it happened, where you've got women are normally sort of the caregivers, they nurture, they look after the kids. And so as you take that attitude and bring it into gaming, suddenly, well, now we've got to make everybody safe. Everyone's got to be nice. And those two things don't meet. And this is why it was one of the things where people just kind of stayed to themselves. It's like, you don't understand my behavior or what we're doing as friends, so you just go over there. And it's only when it's like the busybody can't keep your nose out of my business kind of thing. Now everyone wants to get involved in everybody else's business, and it's like, no, you should really just keep to yourself, because you're probably not welcome over here.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that really annoys me about this whole article here, is that one of the people that was involved in this situation basically said that they would be taking this punishment with the responsibility of my actions that led to my situation. Like, I hate the fact that people continually just cave to what's happening to them in these different situations as well. It's just ridiculous.
Well, they have no moral argument. That's why there's no foundation for them to like fight back from, because it literally, well, you're not pro sexual assault, are you? And they just don't have the arguments at hand to argue against it. They're like, no, I'm not. I'll get rid of it. And it's like, until people learn how to argue against this stuff, that's why it's just eradicated everything.
And the shameful part is that once somebody in a position of prominence says, no, I'm not going to take this crap, it rallies people from the shadows that are like, oh crap, like, he's actually, he or she is, they're standing up to this. Like, this is amazing. Like, now I don't have to be afraid. And, that's what they always try to do, though. They want that chilling effect. They want well, if Donald Trump can get banned from Twitter, then nobody is safe. And that means that everybody just runs and hides. They're like roaches when the lights come out. And you can't be that way. You have to be like, I don't give a crap. If they ban me, they ban me. Like, I'm just going to keep doing what I do. That's why we got on social media and started a YouTube channel, because I was like, you know what? I'm tired of taking crap from people. I want to articulate my ideas. I want to let people know what it is. And I'm not like a Twitter fighter or Twitter warrior there. I like to like sit down and be like, I'm going to have a discussion. It's old school. That's the way that I am. But at least it's like, you're not going to take me out of context here, because you can see what my argument is. And even if you try to twist it, there's going to be enough people. The people that I care about are the people that are willing to listen. So obviously there are people that disagree with you. They're never going to listen to what you say. We see what's going on with Ripa, where he's continually destroyed every single narrative and stereotype that's out there. And they don't care, because ultimately most of these people are jealous because they're cowards themselves. They look at you with envy because they're like, damn, I wish I had the balls to go ahead and do that.
I recently got called brave. I had someone reach out to me and tell me that I was brave for speaking out about how I felt about a certain issue. And I'm like, and they're like, oh, I'm too scared to say anything. I'm like, what's going to happen to you? Just say something. And I feel like that's a big issue. Like, and that's why I also feel like people don't really understand or believe like that Twitter, they think that Twitter is the real world, that it's basically America is this whole, like, we're all leftists here and this is how we all believe in this progressive things. And I don't really align with a certain political party. I just believe in common sense and freedom. And it's crazy when you go out there and you actually talk to people and you realize, no, it's pretty much not like that. And people are just terrified of speaking up.
Yeah, it's true. It's really true. Yeah, and I think that's a major problem that's happening with everything that's going on. But in general, I think that honestly, I think that the video game industry has kind of put themselves in a really tough place because in one way they want to continue to kind of go in this cultural direction that we're seeing happening with the mainstream entertainment and everything else, where they want to continue to pussify things and everything else, and but at the same time they know that they're going to lose a lot of their player bases and everything else if they do that. So they've kind of put themselves in a really weird bind, and I wonder if that's going to be kind of what is going to continue to push more and elevate more of these independent video game companies as well, to be able to kind of fill in some of that space that's going on with that. So I mean, to be honest, like at least for me, like right now, there aren't really any independent games that I am necessarily into or playing, but I can see that changing sometime in the future as well. Kind of going in the same direction as like what Ripa is doing with the Ripaverse, and what we're doing with Epicverse and some of that type of stuff as well. So because I talk about that a lot here, just about like even in Hollywood, the same thing is happening. Like just think about how many of these male strong heroes that we have for young men to look up to and to be inspired by, that they are continuing to destroy. Like you can go down the line with like Luke Skywalker being one of the first in memory that I can think of, but we're just seeing it happening time and time again. And it's just happening everywhere right now in our country, where even in the school system, like they're continuing to try to discourage young men from wrestling and playing around and being boys and stuff. Even when I was a kid, I remember that happened to me once with we used to do like these school tours on this kind of like, we basically I grew up on this like historical reenactment property that we had, where we had like an entire like historical reenactment town. It was set in like early 1800s, and we would do all these tours and stuff, and people would come out and there would be like school tours and everything else. And one day there was a school tour that was out there, and there was like a bunch of kids, and they were all in a circle playing Duck Duck Goose and stuff. And my brother and I were just kind of watching them. We're like, you know what, we should like try to get some of the boys to wrestle with us. So we went over there and stuff, and we started to ask some of the boys if they wanted to wrestle around. And me and my brother, we started to wrestle, and some of the boys were like, oh, you can do that? And then they kind of got up, and we all started to kind of rough house. And then one of the teachers came up to my brother and I, and they were like, you're being a very bad example for my students right now, and I would like to ask for you to leave. And so my brother and I were just like, what? because that was such a foreign thing to us, because we had all of our friends, we always just wrestled with each other, and that was literally what we did like almost all the time as kids. And so to have like that weird other type of perspective of like, no, that's a bad thing for boys to do, was just a really weird moment for my brother and
I remember like essentially like in elementary school, before everybody was like strong enough to throw a football really far, like it would just basically devolve into rugby. That's what it would be.
Yeah.
And everybody would just tackle each other, and it would just be like whoever can make it into the end zone wins. And there's no rules involved. And even if it was flag football, it would turn into tackle football after a while. We used to play football in the middle of the street, and like when you fall, you're gonna bust your ass and you come out bleeding. And my parents would just be like, "What the hell?" And my mom would just be like, "Well, whatever. Just don't bleed all over like the couches and the carpet, and clean yourself." And that was it. I'll put a bandage on you so you don't bleed everywhere. And that was it. And my dad would be like, oh yeah, that's awesome. You guys are playing football. Cool. And that's how it was. And nobody cared. And that's how you got tough and you became competitive. And, as you grow up, obviously you're not going to be like a hooligan running around everywhere, but you know what it is, and you know how to relate. And when you've got kids, you let them have some fun.
I mean, over here it got so bad. Like one of the traditional games that's been played in like playgrounds for as long as playgrounds have existed was Conkers. It's like the seed of horse chestnuts. put it on a string, and you just smash them. First one to break loses. And they recently got banned, or well, it wasn't technically banned. This is where you can play them, but you're gonna have to wear safety gloves because you might hit somebody's hand. Then you're gonna have to wear goggles because what happens if someone smashes in your eyes? And it's literally the idea of everybody needs to be safe. And so people grow up with the parents doing everything. If someone's bullying you, don't solve it out yourself. No, I'll go to the school and we'll solve it. Then the school solves it. And if you grow up in this attitude, in this place where I don't have to solve any of my problems, there's somebody else I can talk to. Well, when you leave that system, now you just want the state to do it. Now it's not my responsibility to do anything. Now it's the government who should stop it.
Yeah, daddy government now takes over from mommy and dad.
There's the statement or the concept of dangerous freedom. It's like, do you really want to live in this bubble where you have nothing, you can't do anything, or do you want to accept responsibility that life can be dangerous but you can do what you want and it's fun and it's exciting and it's worth living? So I remember one time I'm a volunteer medical camp counselor on the summers, and one summer I had a doctor who was a counselor with me tell the kids not to run, and I'm like, we're literally in a camp, and I'm like, why would you tell them not to run? Oh, they can hurt themselves.
Yeah, they can. Yeah,
I think we can take that chance.
And that makes them better runners a lot of times too, because they're like, well, I busted my ass because I was an idiot and I didn't pay attention where I was running. Now I know in the future I'm going to pay attention so I don't trip over a rock. So yeah, and you know what? Bad things can happen. Yeah. You could fall and you could like bust your head and die. Like that could happen. But, to take away all risk, you can't survive. And then, when you run into actual hard times, like let's say that there's global famines or global strife or a war, and you're actually in it now, and you're fighting against a country that doesn't have any of those reservations like a China, where they don't care about that. They're eliminated. They want masculinity now. They're pushing all of that stuff. And I think they're contributing to a lot of the pussification here in the States they're pushing a lot of that political correctness and financing Hollywood and pushing that stuff because it's smart of them to, because they're like, we don't actually have to go to war with these guys if we cause them to implode, or if they're so weak that when we do start like taking over stuff, they're going to be like, well, we're not going to mess with them. They're tough. Like we're not going to mess with the Chinese. They're too tough to mess with.
And by the way, I can't wait till someone calls us misogynist for using that terminology.
Welcome to the club. But one of the issues is if you're raised in this system your entire life from school and everything, you actually don't have a concept of freedom.
No, you don't.
And so you can't start arguing for it because you don't even know what it's like. You've always had somebody to talk to. And so you kind of trained into it. Like there's so many arguments and just assumptions about how things have to be done that people have from school, and they've just never even thought about the question. This is just a good idea. This is what we do. It's the best thing we've ever done, and that's it. And anybody else who even brushes it, you can see them. It's like they've never even considered other arguments. And so you can definitely almost train a concept across a nation when you really want to.
And you brought up a really go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say like another thing that we've talked, kind of combining these multiple issues, like you brought up Roe versus Wade earlier. They always talk like women are gonna get raped everywhere they go. Like there's constant assault. So it's like, so you're telling me,
hold on, 1 in 4 women that's the statistics, experience sexual assault in their life.
Yeah, I know, but it's so bad, but you don't want women to own guns.
Yes.
There you go. So it's like we're going through this terrible pandemic and we're going to create this society by eliminating it, but it's like, okay, but this same society also wants to give you guns to defend yourself. Like there's I don't understand how you don't see here, like you don't want to empower yourself, you don't want to be a true feminist and tell a dude like, if you want to do stuff, if you want to be intimate, you're going to have to be smart about it and protect yourself. Like I don't understand, like if women have become so powerful, I know Joe and I've had this frustration, like it's like, okay, so I'm a feminist, so I'm strong, right? Well, then why can't you tell a dude like, no, I'm not gonna go with you and do stuff because I can get pregnant. Like if you're not gonna do something about it, stop it. And to me, that's a strong thing, because a dude would be like, oh crap, like she's not a pushover. I'm not gonna do anything like that. So
But also, go ahead. Sorry.
I often find arguments like that, it's not even really the argument. They want you to debate that point so you actually can't attack what's behind it, like the principle. Like, because they wouldn't change their mind anyway.
Of course.
Like, well, okay, this is the percent. Well, if I just let you have that point, does that mean you're against everything else? Like, well, no. So, well, why are you arguing about this tiny minority then, if you're actually against it just as a whole idea? And so there's a lot of arguments which are just there as distractions. And I think the best thing to do with stuff like that is generally just to step over it. When someone makes the point, it's like, well, you're not. It's bad faith argument in the first place, and so there's better sort of forms to attack various different topics like that.
Yeah, I mean, 90 some percent of abortions is because of inconvenience.
Yeah,
that is, and but that is a number that they don't really want to debate as like so. If you bring up like, okay, so let's say that we took that 90 some percent and we said no abortions for that, would you be okay with that? They're like, well, no, yeah, we want abortions for anything, throw them left and right. Abortions everywhere. So
that's why I always told Joe, I was like, if that was the position that the Democrats presented to the Republicans, like the Republicans would tell the evangelicals like they're going to be okay with only rape, incest, and health of the mother for abortion. Like we're not gonna let you guys like take that circumstance away. That's reasonable, and then they would be done, and there would never be a debate again. I don't think, but because they go so extreme. It's like, this is illogical, man. Like, I don't even understand why you're asking for this. It makes no sense.
Yeah. My favorite is the people that take that argument to its conclusion. And there was one, they were on like a university campus. It was like, so even afterwards? They're like, oh yeah, afterwards, that's fine. It's like, well, when? It's like, you're right, like 18, 19. Could they just decide now? And the guy went, yes. Like, you've never even thought about this topic. That was just the first thing that came into your head that you answered.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. No, but you brought up a really good point earlier when you were talking about the safety that is exactly what a lot of the arguments about taking freedoms away from people is based upon is we got to keep you safe, and that's just kind of like it's become a weird societal thing in general where parents tell children the same thing, teachers tell children the same thing, and now the government is also telling people the same thing who are supposed to be responsible individuals who can make their own decisions, that you can't make your own decisions, we have to make the decisions for you because we are supposed to be the ones that are keeping you safe from everything.
I saw this argument the other day. This was a debate from like back in the 60s, and it was I don't remember the guy's name now, but he was a black debater, and he was having a conversation with these college students, and one of the college students came up and they're talking about the ethics of like violence, and the guy was like, the student was like, I abhor violence in any possibility or any situation. It's awful. Nobody should ever use violence. There's never a need for it. And the guy goes, okay, well, let me ask you this. Let's say you're a slave and I'm your master. And the guy goes, well, I'd hate you. And he's like, okay, but that's not what I'm like. Listen, like, he's like, you're a slave, I'm your master, and the only way to gain your freedom is to commit an act of violence against me. And the dude just walked away because there was no there was no argument against it. But it's that situation of the reality is it would be great to live in a world where there is no violence, but that's not the world we live in, and that's sometimes how you get a response to things. At school, like I had a situation, I've shared this before, but I had a situation where my daughter was like being like physically hit by like an older boy, and she told me, she's like, yeah, he hit me a bunch of times. And I was like, well, what did you do? And, well, I told the teacher, and the teacher told him to stop, but he didn't stop. So I had a conversation about the fact that if you're in a situation and you've talked to the teacher and the teacher hasn't stopped it, well, she's supposed to be the authority figure. The system is supposed to be, we'll protect you. You don't need to do anything of your own. And I'm like, and if you've talked to the teacher and she hasn't stopped and they're putting their hands on you, I'm like, I want you to hit that dude in the face as hard as you possibly can. And she was like shocked. And I was like, I'm not kidding. Like, daddy has told you, you hit that guy in the face as hard as you can because he'll stop. Like, he'll stop because, but she was like, oh, and so we were in a situation, the kid hit her again at school. She told the teacher, and she says, and if he does it again, I'm going to hit him as hard as I possibly can. And she was like, the teacher was like, well, you can't do that. You're not allowed to do that. And she's like, my dad told me I could. So then she ended up like going to the principal, and the principal's like, well, you can't hit people. And she's like, he hit me, and my dad told me I could hit him as hard as I can. But like the situation is, instead of her having to rely on somebody else to protect her, I told her, you can protect yourself and you're allowed to do that. You don't need to like rely on the system to tell you whether or not it's okay. Because the thing is, they're going through like the conversation is, well, we don't want anybody to use violence. But I'm like, okay, but you're letting somebody use violence on somebody else and the authority figures aren't doing anything about it. So at what point, what are you supposed to do at that point? And it grows bigger when we get into like self-defense and the gun issue and all that stuff about like, people should be able to personally protect themselves. And you saying, well, we'll protect you. Well, guess what? Like we said, if the cop is even a block away, they might not get there in time to help you. So you're sitting there going, well, I can't do anything and I'm not allowed to protect myself because I could get in trouble. And it's like, okay, but the people that are there to protect you won't be there in time.
And that's like, you see the disparity too between states that have stupid laws like their duty to retreat. It's like, you must try to get out of the situation if you can. And it's like, that's absurd. Like that is absolutely absurd. If somebody is already using violence against me to the point where my life is threatened, there is no question now, like deadly force is authorized at that point. So, or any way to neutralize the threat. You may not have to kill somebody. Sometimes even just presenting the firearm, they're like, oh shit, I'm not going to do this. Or even if they have a gun and it's a handgun and you pull out an AR-15, they're like, I'm not going to bring a pistol to a rifle fight in this one, and they back out. I mean, I've seen so many videos of people that break out an AR-15 and like a home break-in situation, the guys just walk right out. And it's like, he didn't even have to use the gun. And that's the best possible situation that you could be in. It's like, I didn't even have to do it. It was a deterrence. And people don't see, like, deterrence is very powerful. Like there are times like when, yes, you should tell that other country that you will nuke them if they attack you, because then they won't attack you because they're going to think you're freaking crazy. And that's the way that it is. It's like, you can do whatever you want, but once you come and you threaten my life, like, that's it, man. You're done. Like, it's over. There's no question. And if most people know that, they're like, you know what? I'm not going to F around. I know I told Joe, and I tell this story all the time, that the day I started carrying a gun regularly, I've never been a hothead or anything like that. Never gotten into really any fights or disputes or arguments with people in public. But that moment also made me think, I was like, I'm definitely not going to get into a fight with anybody right now. Because one, I have to assume if I'm carrying a gun that everybody else has a gun, no matter who they are. And two, I don't even want to put myself in a position where somebody else may be stupid enough to escalate the situation where now I have to do it. So now I want to be doubly responsible, where I want to protect people from themselves. Like, you don't want to mess with me, man. Like, I'm begging you, don't mess with me. Don't make us, like, don't bring it down this path. And I think that once people know, like, that's the mentality of, I would say, most gun owners, that have been, educated. They're responsible, and that you're a good human being. You don't want to harm anybody else. Like, I don't carry a gun because I want to get into a fight with my gun. The day that I die, if I've never fired around at anybody else, that means I lived a good life. I've been in good situations and I've avoided trouble. So that should be everyone's goal. I want to get home at the end of the day. I don't want to hurt anybody else, and I don't want anybody else to hurt me. But I'm going to choose my life and my family's life over anybody else. Like, that's the way that it works. I'm looking out for number one. So, well, and that's just the mentality that people need to have.
There was a situation over here where this guy kept getting robbed in his house because they're coming in through a skylight in the kitchen. So he's like, well, they keep doing it all the time. They keep coming back. It's like almost certainly the same guy, because it's the same. You find most people are like repeat offenders and stuff. So he got a load of knives and he put them face up underneath the skylight. Guy got arrested. The guy came in, burgled the place, fell on knives. Guy got arrested for doing it. And he said, well, it's my house. Can I not just put my equipment wherever I want around my house? He said, no, because you had the intention of using it as a self-defense weapon, that was what it was. Like, you can do it, but it's the intention that matters.
That's
and so
crazy.
you get, so that's the whole thing of like duties to retreat and stuff. Over here, it's a lot about, what did you plan to do? Like, did you have a baseball bat because you wanted to play baseball, or was it by your bed? That will literally be a determining factor in whether it's illegal or not.
I didn't even realize that was a concept that was like prevalent outside. Because the first time I heard that was actually Trudeau recently came out and said he wasn't talking about firearm. Well, he was, but I guess he didn't actually say it.
In general.
He meant in general. He actually said, without saying the word firearms or guns, he said the concept of self-defense is a Republican right-wing concept in America. You don't have the right to self-defense.
Oh my God.
Period. He literally said you do not have the right to self-defense. So I was like, I thought that was crazy. So it's like, if someone's mugging me, I just have to be like,
that's it. Yep.
I'll take it. Yeah, exactly.
It's because property rights are a right-wing belief. And so if you go ever so further left, you end up where the fact that no one's allowed to own anything. And the inevitable consequence of that is you don't own yourself. The state does. And so if you don't own yourself, then you can't protect yourself. You don't own property or anything else.
Well, and it's funny because then the reality should be, if you're a country that believes that, you shouldn't have a military. You should have zero military. You shouldn't have police force. What's the point? What are you doing? You're not supposed. You don't have self-defense, so why are you protecting yourself or your state or your country? You shouldn't have that ability, because, like, what are you doing? It's like, well, we're protecting our citizens from what? If the citizens can't protect themselves, you shouldn't be able to protect them either. You know, I watched this thing. I talk about him a lot, but I watched this special Dave Chappelle did about him getting a gun for the first time, and how the guy that gave him the gun taught him he had a shotgun, and he taught him the
birdshot buckshot
buckshot thing. Yeah. And he was just like, you know, the birdshot, you shoot him, and like that was a warning, and you're in a lot of pain, and I get it. But after this, like, we're done. Like we've, you know, like we've exhausted all pretense. Like if I fired, if you didn't leave when I like loaded this shotgun, you should have like left then. But if you didn't leave after I fired the first shot, what are we doing at this point? You know, I mean, but I think it's a reasonable concept of like, once again, there's a gun owner saying, you know, to another gun owner, hey, there are ways of doing this that doesn't result in the loss of life, but still puts you in a situation where you can defend yourself. Once again, reasonable conversations, reasonable thoughts, not every, you know, but the idea and the concept that they would have you believe is that everybody goes out and gets a gun to murder somebody. And it's like, that's not true. Never has been true. And like, you know, like Rolo said, if I don't ever have to shoot anybody, that's wonderful. That's the hope. But the reality is, like, if I have to, it's because of an extreme. And the argument is always, well, the extreme is you go out and kill a bunch of people. No, the extreme is I'll stop somebody that may try to do something like that. That's what most reasonable people have or believe, you know. Go ahead.
The thing is with that, when it's actually put into practice, that's like the excuse they use as an argument to take it away. But it's not when you remove that, that's not actually their thinking. Because like I can own a crossbow, and there are crossbows that you can have where literally you just pull a lever and it reloads. So you can do a lot of damage with these crossbows that they would be deadly weapons. But to them, it's like, well, you couldn't beat me though. You couldn't stop me. You could go out and do untold damage to a load of people, and it's all be legal. It's not about stopping crime. It's like, say, London knife crime skyrocketing. It's not stopped. It's not lowering. That's not the effect. What it is that you can't defend yourself against a specific force. And it just seems to be that's where everything comes from. Because otherwise, if it was true, everything would be consistent. And if people don't have consistent beliefs, then they're just lying to you about something. And it's just about working out what they're lying to you about.
Well, it becomes an abusive relationship between the government and the people, because it's like the government purposefully leaves those kind of loopholes there so that there's like a constant level of fear and terror. So it's like bad guys are always going to have access to these things. And now we've made you so afraid of the consequences of defending yourself that now you'll live not only in fear of the bad guys, you're going to live in fear of consequences. So now you always have this level of fear, and you're dependent on the government constantly, and the government is going to continually fail. But because it's an abusive relationship, you're going to continue to follow the government, even though they failed you consistently. And like Disparu said, once you've been raised in that environment your entire life, you don't even have the concept of like, can I even get out of this situation? Is there a solution? And it's like, you don't even know that there is a solution out there that you could try to advocate for that would solve the problem, but it doesn't even exist. You're just like, I guess I'm stuck here. Like, I can't do anything.
And on top of that, they put this stigma on people who do feel or do think outside that and label as dangerous people. I mean, our own president has said that we're basically domestic terrorists. Anybody who voted a certain way are domestic terrorists. And this is the same guy who said he was going to come in and unify this country. And then he turns around and disparages half the country and calls them these things.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's to force people to make a decision. These are all the good people and the good ideas, and these are the bad people. Choose. And it was like, if they've not thought of it, well, I want to be with the good people. That's the point. And lots of people they've never even thought about these stuff. If I went out and started asking people, do you want your gun rights? No, they don't. They've not even considered it. And now generations have been raised where it's just normal. And there's a whole thing about culture is downstream from politics.
Yes, absolutely. We say that all the time.
The thing is, I think culture's downstream.
It's politics is downstream of culture.
Yeah, I'm not. I've never been sure that's true. Because culture is downstream from law. If you make a law that stops something happening, and then a few generations go past, and everyone's brought up under that law, they don't want their guns back because that's been the law. So
it goes both ways, because usually it's the culture that will create that will pressure. So it will be a minority that's vocal, like prohibition in the United States when they made alcohol illegal. It was moms that were pushing against men being drunk and causing problems. And it was like, well, okay, that's not the vast majority of men though. It's like, it doesn't matter. So they knew the right people in the right places to make it illegal. And then they obviously that didn't work out. That created the mafia and everything. But you're right. Eventually they do. This is usually it's incrementalism. So eventually you don't even know what it is like to own a gun. You don't know the concept, and you're like, why would I ever ask for that? Like I don't even want it.
I think America's more resistant to it because you have state laws. So there's still a warring factions. But if you can get something in at the federal level where every single place has to be the same, like over here, they pass a law, everyone's got to obey it, then it's much easier to do, which is probably why you've still got these values and other people don't. Just it's specifically because you got state laws. And I think they're trying to erode that, aren't they? Which
absolutely.
Well, that's the conversation, because
like your defense.
Yeah, well, because one of the biggest arguments, I mean, this specifically with Roe v. Wade, and this is something that's ignored a lot, which is funny to me, is that Ruth Bader Ginsburg here was like a really big, like she was a female Supreme Court justice, and a lot of people thought, you know, I mean, she was very leftist, leaned very left and stuff like that. But when Roe v. Wade went into act, she actually didn't agree with it and wasn't in favor of it. And there's a lot of arguments during Obama's administration, they wanted her to retire so they could get a younger justice in there, and she wouldn't. And there's a lot of rumors that she didn't retire for that very reason, because her attitude was it should be left up to the states, and the states will sort that out. And then it'll all sort out and figure itself out. But the federal government doesn't want the states to make that decision. They want to be able to decide for themselves, because reality is, if you actually live in the United States, if you go to California, you know that they're probably, most laws are not, you know, like it's okay to get abortions as much as you want, and it's okay to do this, and it's okay to do that. And then you can live, you know, it naturally will lend itself to certain areas being a certain leaning, but that's not what they want, because the countries, specifically not the country, the states that have certain leanings don't want other states doing what they don't want them to do. Like California doesn't want people having guns, because they've decided they don't want guns. It's like, you know, so that's a constant push. And it's why you notice that like certain places that have the most control over education, like California, but like they are the ones changing the textbooks. They're the ones sending the textbooks across the state and stuff like that. And you're like, well, they shouldn't have control of that. States should be controlling their own education system. Because guess what? You live and die by your own merits. And you look at the state of California as it is, it's failing as a state. But they can mask that by saying, well, federal policy is this, and the federal government says this. And it's like, no, actually, the reality is you'd find out really quickly what policies work and what attitudes work and what leanings work based on states and their own like functionality. You know, like, so I saw somebody trying to argue, well, like the California has like the biggest GDP and they make the most money. I'm like, yeah, but they also have the wealthiest bunch of people. So does New York. A lot of wealthy people live in these bigger cities. So you can't even look at that. But they miss the fact that Texas does not have, I mean, it does have wealthy people living there, but Texas has like a massive GDP, you know, and they're very, very right leaning, you know. So the reality is like, you know, if they left it up to the states, you'd have a natural functioning where leftist people will live in California and they'll live in certain places, and right-wing people will live in certain places, and the laws will be what they are, and you can move to different places. But they don't want that. They want to make it so that every place has the same values all across the board, and there is no states. It's just the federal government and what they do.
Oh yeah, that's exactly what they want.
Well, I find it boils down to a lack of education, because when I'm on Twitter, I'm always like blown away by how dumb people are when they're trying to argue politics. It's like, it should be this way. It's like, that's literally not how our country, like if you look at the founding documents for our country, and that's what separates us from other countries, is this. We have the 10th Amendment. This is how it works. I saw people when Biden made some speech about gun control. It's like, well, you should just pass a law. President Biden, you should do an executive. I'm like, he can't do that because that's not how our government works. The fact that nobody actually even knows that we're a republic and not a democracy is like, it's news flash. It's like nobody actually knows anything about how the government works. You know, the fact that all the Supreme Court did was, well, we're not going to protect.
It's not in the Constitution, so the federal government should have nothing to do with it.
That's all they said.
So
it's like, well, it's not like Thomas Clarence, like, well, now you have to have force. Sorry, whatever his name is, that dude. Well, now it's like, how would it go from, all they're saying is this is not a right based off of the Constitution. Your state's up to your states to decide. That's all they said. But somehow that's how they translated to, they said that now we're going to have forced births. I'm like, no, literally, we're just letting your state decide. But no one seems to understand that.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing, because the argument would be like, well, women in Texas are so oppressed. I'm like, then they can move out of Texas. They're like, no, that's not what we're doing, because we're moving here from California because we don't want to live in California because it's a shithole right now.
Could it be that the majority of women in Texas actually voted to get rid of abortion too? Like, how do you know that Texas women aren't like, I'm not oppressed, I voted for this. Like, this is what I want. I believe in it. So that's what they also don't like. They don't believe, they talk about agency and I need my own personal agency. And I was like, so you don't believe that people would make choices that are different from you and you want to oppress that? Like you talk about like, yes, freedom of choice and all this stuff. And it's like, no, you're not really pro-choice when it comes to most things. It's like on one issue, you are, but on every other thing, if you don't conform lockstep with me, you're my enemy and you need to be destroyed. Or cast aside in society.
That's another one of those narratives that they don't want to get out there, is that there's more women that are anti-abortion than men are. So
well, that's it's one of those things like what was it, the women's right to vote even and stuff like that was a thing that was like actually controversial. They'll never share that because they don't want to have that conversation. There's a lot of women who are like, if I have to like register to vote, I have to register for the draft and I don't want to be in the army. Like there was conversations about like sometimes what is assumed is like, well, why wouldn't you want this? It's like because it adds something to my life that I didn't want to add to my life or whatever, you know? And if like, you know, if you live in a state that says, yeah, you can, then okay, you know, but that's the thing. Once again, it would work because if you lived in a state, like let's say you have two states side by side and one lets women vote and the other doesn't let women vote. And then the one that has lets women vote, like is prospering and doing well, then the other state will go, hey, maybe it's better that we do this. You know, then culture can have a conversation. Then culture can change on its own naturally. But it's just like I said with the Roe v. Wade. It's funny to me that you had a Supreme Court justice who's left leaning that was like, "This is a bad law. Like this is not a law, but this is a bad policy. It shouldn't be on the books. It is extremely overreaching. It is a super bad thing, and all it's going to do is rally people against it until it finally gets overturned. And then once again, you've taken the right away." She even said in a speech, she's like, it's not even really for women's choices. It's for protecting doctors. So and
it's
not even a real conversation.
And you know that there's a major problem that's happening when you have federal politicians who are basically spreading the same false narrative that you know, this is going to destroy women's rights and all of this stuff. Like if they were if they actually had the integrity that they love to preach that they have so much, then they would answer those questions honestly, and they'd be like, no, this is what's actually happening. You know, it's going to go to the states and everything else. Don't that's stop spreading the fake lies, the narratives, and all that type of stuff. But that's not what these literal people that work for the federal government, that's not what they're doing. They are totally wanting to continue to try to twist that because they want all of that power. They want to have complete control over everything across the board, across the country.
Well, there were people that were straight up saying like there are going to be women dead in the streets from this. I'm like, what?
God, no.
Who? Like, I can't get an abortion. I die in the street.
So, and you
really
know, it's
interesting statistics. If you go and look at like backstreet abortions and stuff, like infinitesimal.
It was minimal.
People just didn't do it. Like so.
Well, it's like the mass shooting. Story. It's like the mass shooting narrative too, and like, oh well, you know, AR-15s and assault weapons, and it's like when you look at like how many deaths every year happen from rifles, and it's like all rifles and long guns, not just specifically AR-15s or AKs. Could be a hunting rifle. It's like a few hundred compared to thousands, or with handguns, or even hundreds compared to like blunt objects like fists, feet, and baseball bats. It's like statistically around the same. So that's what they do. They always use the most extreme and worst examples to say like, we're looking through a microscope right now and there's like one Ebola cell in there. So that means that's it. It's a pandemic for everybody just because we got one thing. And that's what they do. So they try to make you panic.
Statistics. From what I remember, most of them are actually done with handguns. But the reason why they're going for rifles is literally because they're the scarier gun.
Of course,
And the argument is, like, now there's a wall. It's like, no, this is a right. So if they manage to ban something outright, well, it's not a right anymore. Now we've determined there's a line. We're just arguing where the line is. And now we can move the line. And so much of this stuff is like a really long strategy just to chip away at stuff. And one thing I don't think people realize, I don't know why, but not everyone shares the same morality. Not everyone shares the same principles. And there are people who don't have any principles at all. And they will say whatever they want. Even lying isn't something that some people believe, if I achieve something good by lying, I'll say it. And so what you end up with is a lot of people who will they'll do something to censor you, but then the moment you say something, it's like, well, that's a free speech issue. And it's like, no, you can't use my principles against me when they're not yours. And so it's why I've always been a lot of, I will treat you how I want to be treated, but that involves being treated by my own principles. And so if you're against free speech or something, I'm not going to provide you the right of being able to use that as a defense, because it's not a value you believe in.
You don't believe in it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. 100%.
Well, and you see the back and forth they do here with how they try to change the rules. So now with this like assault weapons ban that we're seeing, it used to be that when the National Firearms Act, that's what, made it so that you have to register short barrel rifles, short barreled shotguns, suppressors or silencers, and pay a tax stamp. At the time, it was $200. That never changed because it was codified into law. So $200 in the 1930s was a lot more. It was like $5,000 or $6,000 almost.
Prohibitive.
Yeah. So back then it was cost prohibitive. Now it's just inconvenient because you have to wait months to go through these background checks.
Well, to some people, I still say that's still prohibitive.
Yeah, it is. Of course
Absolutely.
it is. Yeah. And I mean, a suppressor helps you because it doesn't actually silence a gun. It just makes it so that it's tolerable. You're not going to deafen yourself, especially if you're indoors and helping yourself. It would be kind of good if, it's fine. It's always going to be really loud. But if I don't deafen myself when I defend myself, that's a plus. Because there might be multiple people. What if I'm deafened after I take care of the first person? I can't hear the person behind me either.
Well, most people assume that silencers work like they do in the movies. And
no, even John Wick 2 killed me with that, with him and Common going at it in the subway station. I'm like, this is ridiculous. Even if you had subsonic ammo, people would hear bullets hitting things and guns racking, like a gun moving back and forth. That's a mechanical device that makes noise. So it's like a sewing machine. A sewing machine is really loud. Like that's what's going on.
Yeah. It actually drove me crazy when they someone introduced like the hearing
Protection
Act, and I'm like, this is legit. Like if you are in the industry or you shoot a lot, like you have a higher risk of having hearing loss. I actually wear double ear protection because feel like I have very sensitive ears, and just one's not enough, or I don't know, just over the head ones. Like I used, I don't know. I think my head's very small, or they don't align properly. I have.
Well, when you're wearing shooting glasses, it's tough.
Yeah,
it just make a seal sometimes.
So I just feel like it's like this is something. If it's in your life a lot, you should have the ability to protect your hearing without having to pay $200 per device.
But it's funny
being put on a dangerous list.
Well, because it's funny though how like even their own viewpoint changed. So the reason that was put in was because obviously the mafia back in the day during Prohibition ran rampant, and they had crime and they stole a lot of military weapons. So they were running around with full auto submachine guns and BARs, wreaking havoc. So they're like, well, we don't want them to use these submachine guns. These Thompsons can be concealed in like a trench coat. So we want to make it so that concealable weapons aren't allowed. They were going to add pistols to that list and make them prohibited weapons because that was their logic. We don't want concealable weapons. They didn't because they realized like there's no way we can ban handguns. But now it's funny. The logic is we don't want you to have these assault weapons that are very much more difficult to hide, because if you see some dude in a hot day in a trench coat, you're going to look at the guy and be like, he could be a goth, but this is a little bit strange. So maybe I should pay attention to this dude. But now it's like, well, pistols are okay. I can have like 20 pistols on me and nobody will ever know. Like, I don't understand what the logic is here. Now I do, because yes, a rifle is more effective and more powerful. But if you go into a room like a school where there's innocent people that don't know what's going to go on, Virginia Tech was one of the biggest massacres here. And one guy, he had a 22 pistol and a 9mm. He had two handguns and he did devastation. Because if you put people in a position where they can't help themselves, a rifle or a pistol is not going to matter. It's not going to matter. You're done. You can't do anything. So
but that's how they get you, through taxes and making stuff far too complicated that no one can be bothered. Because I can own guns, but the rigmarole to go through it and what you have to do to keep up with it and the amount of taxes and everything else on top of it, it just makes it that nobody really goes to the effort to do it. And so it's a very easy way. I think there's countries as well. I think actually China does this. The fact that if they don't want you to go on something, they don't actually ban the website. They just slow it down to the point where it takes so long to load, you can't be bothered to go on and you just don't do it.
Right.
And I think what always got me is if the idea is that you tax things you don't want people to do, which is definitely what it is over here, you come back to the whole idea of why you're taxing income then. It's like you don't want people to earn the money because it's deliberately something that you're making less profitable. You're disincentivizing them going over a certain amount of money.
Yeah, that's what they did. That's what they did over here with diesel vehicles, because diesel is actually cheaper to make than regular gasoline, like way cheaper. So it used to be people driving diesel cars, they were paying like $1, sometimes much less than what we were, and they wanted to get rid of trucks, so they made diesel more expensive. And then the American response to that was to go out and buy more trucks. Like they like shattered a bunch of records that year on truck sales. You know, but
it's like hold my beer, man. It's like, you want me to stop this? F you.
But the reality is, like, go ahead.
Just quickly, every time I hear them pass a gun law and I hear that sales have gone through the roof, I'm like, yes, get in. That's amazing.
It's really the gun lobby is secretly like, guys, pass gun control because we're gonna have a huge selling spree before.
Right.
It could be this terrible conspiracy.
There's a conspiracy about that. Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, that actually people think that they're working in tandem and they'll just like pass.
Or it's like get close to passing gun control. Like this assault weapons ban is probably not going to pass the Senate because they need 10 Republicans to cave, even though they did before the last gun control. But this is going to be bigger. So
that's my favorite Americanism, though. It is just like, we're going to do it even more. That's
what we do. That's what we do. So now you're going to see, like, this week, AR-15s are going to be selling out everywhere, and AKs, like, you're not going to be able to find them, or they're going to be marked up ridiculously. And then and then if it doesn't pass, everybody will be like, well, whatever. Now we have more guns, so it's all good. So see what you made us do. Now we have even more. So when it goes to the Supreme Court, and they use the argument for common use weapon, it's like, well, everybody's got an AR-15. That's the most common rifle around. You can't ban that. Like, that would be ridiculous.
Well, I feel like it has actually, like, it started those conversations. So to me, it's interesting that a few years ago, I had, I was the person in the friend group that had a gun, and everybody would be like, oh, I don't know how you do that. It's so dangerous. And now, like, fast forward a few years later, I called up one of my friends, and she's talking to me about moving to Georgia because they don't need concealed carry licenses. So I'm like, what world are we living in? Like,
she jumped so far.
Like,
well, it's funny because I have a buddy that happened to him with people that are like not gun friendly, and they're like, oh, you have guns, oh my gosh, and stuff like that. And then Summer of Love happened, and mostly peaceful protests, and everybody was like, damn, I need to get a gun. And once again, gun sales went through the roof. But it wasn't because they're trying to ban guns. It was because everybody that didn't want a gun realized why they should have a gun.
Yeah.
Because if they show up to your place and you fire a shot, most of them are going to leave.
Yeah.
And the ones that don't get to leave for a reason. It's just, it's one of those things. It's the whole fuck around and find out scenario. The
culture shift that's happening in our country right now is fascinating for many different reasons, and we're seeing it happening just on like state levels. I feel like that, especially over the past couple of years, we've seen a lot of variations and where in the different directions that the states are going, separating from each other in different ways as well, which is just very interesting to see. And overall, I think that it's a good thing that we have states that are continuing to, hey, you're going to go in your direction with, how you want to do culture, politics, all that stuff. We're going to go in our direction. I definitely prefer that over, federalization of all of that stuff. But yeah, so it's just really interesting to see the culture shifts that are happening right now. And it's happening across the board from every aspect of the culture, even in entertainment, it's happening in entertainment and everything else. And it's really interesting, and I don't know exactly what the final outcome is going to be of all of it, but it's a really fascinating thing to watch happen. So
I don't know, it could go in a lot of different directions.
I've said that this is something I'm terrified of. Actually, I know you're saying it's a good thing, but blue states getting blue or red states getting redder, I feel like the divide in the country is getting bigger and bigger with each passing day, and I don't see a solution to it. We're never going to come back together.
There's a crazy thing, like, this is a crazy thing that a certain guy that just sold $3 million worth of comic books kind of talks about a lot. There's always this really funny thing about being in the United States, because we're supposed to be, states that are all united together. When you really start digging into stuff, you can kind of always point the finger back to like the giant government entity that kind of is like trying to constantly pass all these laws. And our Nick the Nose Ricada the other day, like not that recently, posted a thing about the fact that like there should be no scenario where the government is not terrified of its citizens. And specifically the United States, because we have it on the books, straight up on the books. You keep fucking around, and like if the government starts getting really tyrannical, it didn't even say like really. It says the government starts acting specifically like this, it needs to be destroyed.
eradicated.
The founding fathers straight up said, if this happens, you need to like end this, and you don't just end it with policies. They said, get nasty and get violent and stop it now, because we came away from that, and we established a country on the idea that nobody should be in that situation. The government should not ever be controlling its citizens. The reason, we talk about taxation and stuff, and it's become like, it's become a trendy saying, but the fact is the government taxed vehicles because they didn't want you having those vehicles. Well, who was represented in that? Who's represented in that? Where was somebody going, yeah, I voted to make sure that diesel vehicles are taxed like higher than anybody else?
Because I run a horse and buggy company, so I need to make sure that my monopoly remains there. So all these newfangled Model Ts need to get the tax crapped out of them. It's like why taxi drivers hated Uber when it first came out and started trying to restrict it.
And there was legislation. Remember, there was legislation against Uber.
And it affects capitalism. So see, that's why people are like, capitalism is terrible. I was like, capitalism doesn't work the way it's supposed to, because it's cronyism in the United States, because you lobby a politician to create rules that affect your competition. So it's the most perverse version of both. It's like a quasi social capitalism, and it's the worst thing of all in a lot of cases, because you end up with corporations gaining power and having rules that apply to them, that you don't get those special privileges,
rules,
and
for
you're
me,
basically
not for
screwed.
me.
It's like it becomes like this corporatist cronyism society that we've got, and then it makes it. They use that to beat us over the head. People that actually want real capitalism, or libertarians, or people that are more freedom-minded, they're like, see, this doesn't work. All these evil corporations do bad. I was like, that's because the government and the corporations are colluding. That's real fascism, actually. That's government colluding with companies is fascism. I was like, I don't understand why you people don't get that. That's the true fascism.
Like, surprise.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know that politicians don't actually write the bill. Most bills come from lobbyists. They're like, here's this bill. And then it'll be like 5,000 pages, and then they won't even know what's in there, and they go vote for it. And I mean, we just had this happen this week with the PACT Act, and I saw it was trending on Twitter, Republicans with 3 Ks, if you know what I mean. And I was like, what's going on with this? So we dig a little deeper, and it's this really big bill that has a bunch of other stuff stuffed in there, but it makes them look bad because they voted for something that's like, oh, see, Republicans don't like veterans. They're voting against this bill that was going to help them get more health care because of burn pits, Agent Orange and all that stuff. And it's like, well, actually they voted against it because there's this stuff that's in the middle that's like really bad.
Well, we can spend another $400 billion on whatever we want that has nothing to do with healthcare. And the Republicans are like, wait a second, so you threw this crap in there, they poison pilled this stuff, and both sides do it, which is terrible. So they can both say like, see, those guys are assholes. I was like, well, if you pass a clean bill that was just like 5 pages, it's like, this bill is for veterans healthcare. That's it. There's nothing else. That's what it is. I think some states have provisions. Ironically, one of the most effed up states of all, which Brady can attest to, she's in the chat, Washington State has that law where basically bills have to be only on their one subject. That's it. That's it. So you have to read it. It makes it easier because it's shorter. And now you know exactly what you're voting for. So it's obvious. And you don't get in this situation where it's like, well, yeah, they had a bill here, but so it's like a bill to save children, but they threw in this other thing, but we can also go to war with any country that we want on the side. And it's like, well, like, what kind of choice is this? It's like, well, you don't want to save children. You don't care about it. It's like, I don't want to go to war with these other countries. It's like, no, you don't care about kids. That's the way it is. So that's how they do it.
And because the media will back that narrative. The whole thing about like the whole "Don't Say Gay" bill, and like that had nothing to do with it. And it's funny because I can't help myself, and I argue with people on the internet all the time. There was a guy, he was a TikToker, he's a pretty popular one, and he was talking about the "Don't Say Gay" bill. He was going off about it, and I like popped up in his comments, and I was like, dude, the bill doesn't say anything about that. And he goes, yeah, I bet, I'm sure. I'm like, dude, it's 5 pages long. Anyone can read it, and it's a really easy read. And and this is what's crazy about it. Lo and behold, 2 hours later, the video disappears. He took it down. Because you probably read the fucking bill. Like, it's not that hard. But the fact is, you can't read a 5,000 page bill, and most of these senators and politicians aren't. Like they tried to do this with the whole internet thing a few years ago, where they're trying to pass I don't remember the name of the bill now, but whatever. Yeah, the net neutrality bill. And then they're like, look at this, look on the books, look how many politicians received a $10,000 donation from this company that wants this bill passed. Because they don't want them to read the bill. They're just like, hey man, I'll just give you some money so you can get reelected, and then don't read the bill.
They do it off the books, like they get gifts. So it's like, hey, come visit me and my company at this ski resort, and we'll hang out. And it's like it's no big deal because they're not actually getting money, but it's like you get all these gifts, you get to go on trips and stuff like that. We know what's going on. It's bribery. So
over here they do speaking engagements. So they'll go to a dinner and they'll speak and be like, "You've got paid 50 grand to speak at this dinner." No, you didn't. And it's like, "Oh well, no, that's why I got the money. That's what I did the job for."
That's where all our politicians here, who their salary is like 100K or 200K or whatever, they're all multi-millionaires. It's like, how do you think they got all that money?
Yeah,
they've been a congressperson for the last 20 years, but they're worth $60 million. How do you think that happened?
Yeah, and we've had a lot of presidents over the years. Like, well, I think the last Bush didn't do it, but I know Obama said it. Trump even said it too, where they're talking about, well, we're going to get rid of these lobbyists. We're gonna really eradicate a lot of these lobbyists. We're not going to meet with them. We're not going to have them, affecting our politics because it's toxic and poison. And then nothing happened, because I think a lot of them get into office and realize, if I try to dismantle this could get really bad for me. And then there's actually a lot of examples of politicians that were like, yeah, I'm not really listening to these lobbyists and stuff like that. Like, wow, I can't remember his name now. The big one that got assassinated a few years ago, John F. Kennedy. He was like, yeah, I kind of don't like some of this stuff that's going on with this kind of this political corruption stuff. And you know what? For whatever reason, even he was corrupt too or whatever. He was like, I don't really like these guys. I don't want to deal with it. And all of a sudden, lo and behold, he gets assassinated. And they go, I don't know what happened. Like, it's weird. It's crazy.
It was the Soviets, man. It was the Soviets.
Yeah. And then the next guy that steps up goes, not only am I going to allow lobbyists, I'm going to do it even harder. And I'm going to do a war that nobody asked for too. Pretty cool, huh? And you're like, not really,
Well, and then this is the guy that said, I'm going to have the great society because I'm going to have black people eating out of the palm of our hand for 200 years. And use more colorful language than that. Yeah. But, these are the people that we deal with. And they don't see, people don't understand the government wants you to be dependent so they can control you. That's why throughout history, what have they done? Why do certain policies affect like the black community more? Because that's where the government starts. So when, Republicans are like, we don't want to talk about systemic racism, I was like, you have to, because it's in all the Democrat cities. That's what they do. Yes. They implement all these policies in the city. And obviously minorities are the ones that are disproportionate in a lot of those places. They can't do anything. They don't have the money to lobby against it or anything like that. And then they have Democrats say, well, we're doing things out of compassion to help you. And they're like, well, why is Chicago going into the shitter? Like, I don't understand. It's like, well, because you keep voting for the same people over and over again. They implement these policies. And it's like gun control. Gun control started out as a racist policy. Now it's more of an economic policy where it's like you have the elites. They can get private security and mercenaries with machine guns, but you can't even get like a 5-shot revolver. Screw you. Like it's for your own safety. And it's like, no, they want to keep you down. And now they've just expanded upon it. They saw that it worked with certain communities that they could get away with it in. And they've convinced them like, yeah, we want government dependency. So that's why, like, when people ask, like, why do minorities vote for the Democrat Party? It's like, because they've already been pushed that much stuff that they believe in it. And now it's affecting everybody else. You see how it spreads to all the other communities. And some people are resistant to it. That's why the Asian community, Asian people are like white adjacent now, because they, they stand up against it and they're like, no, we believe in meritocracy. That's what America's all about. And it's like, no, you guys are like white people now.
And are also some of the most
we're not gonna let you in college just because you got a perfect score on the SAT.
And they're like some of the most wealthy, like well-educated people in the country. And it's funny because like it's obviously different, but like, for in our country specifically, because Disprove isn't from our country, surprise. Over here,
why don't tell me?
Over here, like specifically, like black people in America specifically, they all vote Democrat because that's what they were taught, and it's like generational. Where like literally, I know people in my family only vote Democrat because that's what you're supposed to do. And now we have people like, Gothics is a big one that's talked about it. And Rip has obviously talked about it a lot and stuff, where they started realizing they're like, wait, why do I only vote Democrat? And they started looking at Democratic policies and they go, oh my God, this is terrible. Like, this is like the opposite of what I wanted. And then they got red pilled. But then what's the response? Oh, you're racist. And they're like, how am I racist? I just said I want the best for like my people, and they're like, no, you're internalized racism. You don't get it.
Oh, when you're a race trader, God, I love getting called a race trader.
I get that all the time because Hispanic communities are the same, and it's funny because it's like I grew up super Hispanic. Like I missed one of the running jokes is I missed.
I'm always getting Joe to watch 80s action movies
because I missed all that.
Yeah.
I watched all of them and dubbed in Spanish on Telemundo and Univision. You know, like I grew up on. It's a totally different culture. So my like meet like what do you call it? Like the whatever the media that I watch is like Saulo Gigante on Saturdays, you know, like I don't know. But anyway, going back to my point is that I grew up in front of a TV where I didn't think anything of it. Our media, our news is so biased in Spanish media, super biased, super left leaning. And you kind of like, even if you come in with a conservative, you know, my parents are both immigrants. They both are closet or like they're confused because they really are conservatives, but they really aren't when they come and vote because they're being told every day when they sit down to watch news, this is good, this is bad, because their news is biased. And then I leave the house or I go into the workforce and then I'm like, man, taxes suck. And then I start like coming up with my own ideas because I'm out there living and I have this, you know, revolution of thought. And then I come back and I tell my parents and they're like, you're voting for all those racist people. And I'm like, what? You're anti-Hispanic.
I remember one time.
I'm so confused by this.
We went on a trip. We went on a trip to this big training event that happens every year in Missouri called NOC Train and Learn event run by one of our mentors in the gun community. And I remember Joe's like, oh, I'm going with Rolo. We're going to go to like Orlando for a week or whatever. Because but then her mom was like, I hope you're not out there getting trained to be a domestic terrorist or anything like that. And we're literally out there shooting AR-15s. I was like, she would totally think that we are. I was like, but half the people here are black. I was like, we have all these different, like, it was the most diverse like group, and not intentionally. It's just like we're all here and everybody's welcome, and that's how it worked out. And it's like there's just so many different parallels going on here, and it was just so funny to hear that. And meanwhile, my parents are the opposite. My dad was in the Navy. I grew up a Navy brat, but never with any guns in the household, just because. You move overseas, you can't take your guns with you. And born in Puerto Rico, Puerto Rico used to have extremely strict gun laws, despite being part of the United States up until recently. So, you know, I bought my first gun when I was 21 and I could buy a handgun. And then slowly my parents have loved what we've done on YouTube and with gun rights advocacy. So my dad bought his first gun about a year ago and I've taken him out and taught him how to shoot.
That's awesome.
With that. So it's been really awesome. So it sucks having kind of the contrast between like Joe's family, who's very like vehemently against it, and my family that's totally like, I've radicalized my father. That's where I'm at. So my dad, who was in the military for 25 years now, like the government is the root of all evil. The Pentagon is busting out with all this woke shit, and he's still, you know, in that space. So it's now funny. I was like, you got to be careful, Dad. They're gonna fire you one day. He's like, I don't give a shit.
Nice.
Like, this is all crap.
Well, that's very interesting that you both have very different, you know, backgrounds here. So, you know, your father, Rolo, like he heard perspectives that were outside of the mainstream norm. Joe, would you say that your parents do they kind of, because you mentioned like TV and some of that, do they like watch a lot of like American TV, American media, or?
Well, they watch it on like filtered through. They only watch 2 channels. They only watch Spanish TV, Telemundo and Univision. That's it. And it's really like, I didn't realize it while I was growing up that there was a filter where we're all getting this information translated in a certain specific place. Like it's all extremely biased. And I didn't realize it until I came back into that household. I sat down on the couch and went, wow, I cannot believe this is not news. This is propaganda.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And that's kind of, go ahead. Just
there's people over here that I talk to where I'll like say something and about, no, that can't be right because now all media over here is regulated by Ofcom, which literally tells them like the boundaries of what is acceptable to say. And so there is only one perspective. And like I talk to them and I'll say, well, no, you can't say that because this said this thing. I'm like, oh, okay. And then it's like they're on a delay of reality because in 6 months they'll come back and go, oh, you were right about this thing you said over there. And I'm like, yeah, how often do I have to be correct before you just start trusting me and maybe look into it yourself? It's like, no, it's so weird when you live with people that only consume from one place. And it is literally like they're lagging behind in time. because
Mhm.
you have to wait for things to catch up to what's allowed by Ofcom to say before they even like understand that it's possible.
That's one of my favorite things to do, and it helps wake some people up, is talking about history and the parallels that you see between that. So I've talked about like different societies that have gone through social turmoil. Obviously, we had the American Civil War, but that feels detached because it was 150 years ago, more almost 200 now. So you have that detachment. But if you talk about more modern conflicts like the Spanish Civil War, it's like, well, Spain had a civil war. I was like, yeah, this is why it happened. These were the forces that kind of pushed that. Even in Great Britain with the troubles of Northern Ireland, I was like, you have social strife and it's political, and you find out the narratives of like even how the UK government escalated that stuff and covered a lot of other things up. And as you learn those things, you start like,
your media will also have had that through a filter. So
of course, well, no, I actually watched the BBC's own documentary on the
That's
troubles. It was interesting. Yeah, well, they were going to filter, but I've watched different things like that, and you see those parallels, and you see like how a society can be pushed one way or the other, and that a lot of times the forces are governmental forces that are influencing a lot of those things throughout the way, and you're always kind of called a conspiracy theorist if you start seeing like, what, this happened in this country, or this happened actually here 50 years ago. It was pretty much the same strategy that's being used now. But obviously back then you had like 3 news channels. So the narrative was very easy to cover up. So it's kind of ironic that we live in an era now where we have more information, but they try to cover up more than ever before. And it's almost like they've got sand in their hands and it keeps leaking out. They can't stop the flow. So eventually it's going to break. And I think that's where we're reaching the point where people don't trust institutions anymore. And you have the people that are so ingrained and so reliant on it, either because they hold the power or the people that have bought into it, like their existence, they can't imagine an existence without this authority and people telling them what to think. So it would be, I think, Yeonmi Park, she escaped from North Korea and she made it to the West. And one of the things that she said was when she went to South Korea and they kind of like unindoctrinated her and taught her about like Western civilization, she left and she was terrified because she's like, you mean I actually have to do everything myself now and I'm reliant on myself? And they're like, yeah, that's what freedom is all about. And she's like, she saw at first like she didn't want that. She's like, no, I don't want this. This is too difficult or this is uncomfortable. And it's just crazy how you just have to pull people out of that. And it takes a lot of effort.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, I kind of wanted to take a little bit of time to talk. Like, I want to hear what because so a little bit of a shift of the subject here. I kind of want to hear what you guys because obviously you're involved in the video game side for Geeks and Gamers and all of that type of stuff. So like, what have you guys always been big gamers? Is that kind of a big part of your household? And where did you guys kind of start with your fascination with all of that and everything else?
I guess if you can see behind us, we've got all of our Nintendo consoles. I'm proud to say that
that's my Nintendo.
Yeah, or all of our Nintendo consoles. They're going up to the GameCube. I've got the Wii and the Wii U everywhere, so we've got them all. So Joe actually started before I did. She started in the NES era. I started in the SNES era. Ironically, I lived in Japan and never had a Famicom or Super Famicom because my dad was stationed there and I wasn't into it back then. But my dad got us a Super Nintendo. My uncle was always into that from the Atari 2600 days. So that's where I got exposed to it. And I used to play Super Mario World and Mario Kart with my dad all the time. It's funny now because he gets mad at me that I don't play with him on Xbox Live World War Z because he's like, this game is the best. I was like, you've been playing this game that's so old for years now, Dad. He's like, we've moved on. He's like, no, man, it's the best. I'm telling you. I was like, I'm sorry. So, I always grew up that way. And I'm proud to say these are all like our original consoles. We didn't have to go back and buy them and because it sucks to have to go back that way. I did that with the PlayStations. And I regret it.
Yeah.
And so, so we've got a huge background. And as soon as I started going out with Joe, I think guns and video games were the 2 biggest things that I had to make sure. I was like, these are very important for me for different reasons. But if you're not into this stuff, like I'm just giving you a warning, it's probably not going to work out. And she obviously embraced them both and was like, this is, yes.
I have my own version of my story on this. So
well, she embraced it because she's always into that stuff.
I did. So here's what happened with me. As you can tell, that's my Nintendo from 1986 or 7. And my parents bought me a Nintendo for Christmas one year. And I loved it. I loved gaming. I beat the first Super Mario, and I was a huge Zelda fan and Castlevania fan and all this stuff. And then at some point when I was sitting there grinding, I think it was Zelda that finally broke my mother, where she was like, you know what? You need to stop playing because this is not getting you anywhere and this is bad for your brain. So she just literally took away my gaming system and said I wasn't allowed to do it anymore. So I still liked it, but it was taboo in my household. So every time I would go to my friend's house, I would be able to play their Segas or something, but it was just something that I just never really had access to as much as I wanted to. So fast forward, video games evolved, and then they have 2 joysticks, and I missed that whole training because I missed all that era. And then I go to college, and I had a tendency to have a type, I guess. So I dated guys who were into gaming, and that's where I got my first exposure to the Xbox. And I'm like, I remember the first time I was sitting there in my boyfriend's at the time living room playing with his roommate Halo, and I'm like, I'm staring at the ceiling. I don't know how to play this thing. So then I got into played GTA and just found my love of Castlevania again and played them all again. So I got that exposure in college, and then left college, started dating Rolo, and that was our dating. Like he was like, you like video games? And I'm like, yeah, I'm not very good at them. And then it became like we sat down and played Gears of War every time we came over. I came over to his house, and I'm like, that was great. That was
like
so
her
much
game,
fun.
like her
Yeah.
first like game that she really got into big time. Like co-op was always very important. I'm a huge co-op guy.
Yeah.
Just from I have a younger brother too, and obviously my dad. So Halo is especially important in like my co-op history, split screen, all that stuff, LAN parties. So it was awesome to like have Joe and be like, okay, now you get to experience all this too. We get to go through the stories, and that's always been a really strong foundation of our relationship.
And it was just
That's awesome.
I just had this dream of one day being able to play with him and his boys online. And I'm like, the first time I did it, I was just like, this is great.
Yeah, that's great. No,
then one of them teabagged someone, and it was it all went to hell.
She's like, "What are they doing? Why is he crouching over there?"
I
was like, "Oh, it's teabagging." It's like, "Oh, what an asshole! Fuck that guy."
No, I didn't really have any.
No, you're just like whatever, dude. Well, for her, it's more like because when you do it in games like Halo or Call of Duty, you take a risk of getting killed. So she'd be like, "Why is somebody teabagging? He just got killed after doing that. What an idiot!"
Yeah.
It's like it's a wasted time. So I was like, if you can get away with it, that's what it's all about, Joe.
I got offended. There was a guy, I think it was in Battlefield. Now that has the kill cam, so when you die, you see the person that killed you. And my mate killed me, and he just started squatting. I'm like, no, if you're gonna do it on my corpse. I want it on my. You don't just do it in midair. That's just crouching. So I got more offended that he was doing it wrong than anything else.
I know, it's true. It's like at least make an effort, man.
Yeah, if you got a BM, at least do it properly.
That's hilarious.
Yeah,
that's great.
So that's how we got into it, and now we've got, we started doing streaming and all that, and we did Twitch a little bit back in the day, but we weren't like in the position, we hadn't like moved in or gotten married, so it's like we can't do it as often as we would want.
I still I moved back in with my parents because I have older parents, so someone always had to live with them. And post college, and video games were still banned. In fact, that was one of the things she never liked. She never liked any of my like significant others, but she didn't like Rolando because
I'm a bad influence.
He was a bad influence, and he played video games. So she'd always be like, "You're not playing video games over there, are you?" I'm like,
"No, we're shooting guns instead."
No, we're doing it for real, Mom.
He's teaching you about freedom, guns, and video games. This dude is terrible. Does he have a motorcycle? No, that's the one thing.
Yeah.
He drives the stick shift too. Be careful.
So, are there? You talked about how like you co-op is a big thing for you. Are there any like co-op games that you guys are playing right now that are like, newer?
We're supposed to be playing Tiny Tina, but we never have time for
Borderlands
it.
Tiny Tina.
I love Tiny Tina. My daughter and I were playing that right now.
Awesome.
We played one stream of it. Me, Disbrew, Josiah,
and then
Jay
Mike
Hailstorm.
was like, "I'm never gonna play that with you again." And I was like,
"Well,
right.
we just
that's fine."
We've been doing Sniper Elite 5 actually. Sniper Elite 5 has been a lot of fun, and people love it because Joe has a tendency to shoot people's balls off, and it shows the kill cam. It's So
you have
she's
to
like, I
in
don't
that
know what's
game. That's the
happening.
rules.
Yeah. So she's just like, I've got a great clip on the channel of her doing that. She didn't know it was happening, and she was like,
I
"Did I
think
just?"
no scope someone's testicles.
Yes,
Right?
yeah.
I was just like, I wasn't.
Did the
intending
kill
it.
cam? She got a diamond achievement. She was like, "Holy crap, that's awesome!"
Yeah.
So now she's got the reputation. Everyone in chat when we're streaming a game, they're like, "Watch out, Joe's gonna shoot your balls off."
Are you gonna get Dark Tide, 40k Dark Tide? It's like the sequel to Vermintide.
It looks
in
good,
40K.
yeah, because we played a little bit of Vermintide, so I would definitely like to try that out. We played obviously Gears back in the day, Halo, and we just pretty much anything that comes up, we try to do that.
Bad habit of starting games and never finishing them.
Well, because a lot of times what'll happen is we'll start like a co-op.
Yeah.
A co-op campaign game, and then an online game will come out, and it's like, well, we gotta play with our friends. Like,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So that's what happens with Fortnite.
Yeah.
It's like I should be playing and streaming this other game that I need to finish, but it's like, oh, Jeremy, Fortnite, or like we gotta go do it.
Yeah.
So
I've wanted to check out Vermintide. It looks fun.
I love
it.
it.
Is good. It's really
very good.
Nice.
Yeah, I just never have anybody to play Vermintide with, but
Is it
I'll play
crossplay?
Vermintide with you. I got both of
they're
them.
nice.
Is it crossplay or?
I actually don't know.
I don't know if
think
it's consoles only and then PCs only or not.
We're
That's
playing
good.
on PC, right?
Okay.
We play on PC and
Yeah.
on Xbox, so we tried.
Yeah.
both.
Yeah.
I'm a huge Call of Duty Zombies fan. I love
Mhm.
It's not. It's not crossplay. No.
It's not. Dang it, dude.
Yeah. Maybe the next one will
Sucks.
be. I would think that the newer one might be though.
Yeah.
Because Vermintide
Yeah.
came in that period, like just right when games started
That's
becoming
true.
crossplay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Is there supposed to be another one coming soon or?
Yeah, November Dark Tide is.
Oh, nice.
Mhm.
Nice.
That one's going to be like modern Warhammer, right? So yeah,
Okay.
like you said, 40K.
Yeah, 40k. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Cool.
That'll be fun. I'll definitely have to check that out. But
Yeah.
But yeah, no. Yeah, I love like Call of Duty Zombies. That's actually what my wife and we kind of started with
Sweet.
playing.
Oh, wow.
And
It
stuff.
doesn't.
No, I
So-
saw that it doesn't at launch. They said.
Really?
I don't know
Yeah.
what that means.
As of
wow.
2 months ago,
Crazy.
so it's unlikely it's changed since.
Mhm.
Damn.
It's weird because it's so easy to do now. Like Epic and Steam and stuff have it built in. So
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
I
weirder
mean,
when
if Fall
games
Guys can
don't
do
have
it,
that.
you don't really have an
I
excuse.
know.
Yeah.
I mean, the
Yeah.
consoles are basically PCs. They all run on an x86. It's not like
Yeah.
they have some exotic crap like they used to. So
I can
Yeah.
understand games that are established that have been out for a while that maybe it's harder for
Mhm.
them to kind of incorporate that into their game. But when you're starting at launch and you don't have that, that's just kind of weird nowadays.
Yeah.
Well, it used to be, as far as I'm aware, it was like Microsoft and Sony. They didn't have this like the ability themselves to do that. But once they make like the APIs or whatever it requires to actually do it, then
yeah,
everybody should be able to.
Mhm.
There's like built-in
Yeah.
systems for it.
It should be naturally a thing all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I-
especially
at this point.
co-op games where there's no competitive nature
Yeah,
between mouse
right.
and controller and stuff. Who cares?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I feel like there's not a whole lot of like that great of cooperative games that are out right now. There's this one that's coming out later this year that I'm kind of interested in called Evil West, which looks like it could be pretty.
it does
pretty
look
good.
interesting. I saw that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't know. There's not a whole lot that's really the only other cooperative game that I wish was crossplay is Warframe, but unfortunately
that's
that is
me and Josiah have been waiting on that one for a long time. They announced it like a year and a half, 2 years ago, and we were so pumped. And they were like, "Yeah, it's coming
Mhm. Yeah.
sometime." Like at one point, they announced it. It was I think it was supposed to be at the end of 2020, and we were like pumped and we were prepped and we're like, "Dude, we're gonna like make sure we're and then they're like, nah."
I
Yeah, we
can't
got-
believe
we
how
got-
well that game ran on the Switch.
Yeah,
I
was
couldn't
gonna say,
believe it.
we got into Warframe for a little bit.
Yeah, because it was
Yeah.
on Switch, so we're
Yeah.
like, oh sweet, we can do this on the go.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of fun.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Payday
Warframe's a good
2
time.
is one of my favorites because I really like co-op wave defense
Mhm.
games, and
Yes.
that is just like you go and rob a bank or whatever, and you're just
Yeah.
holding off waves and waves of police. It's a
That's
That's
awesome
why we always
game.
loved
Yeah.
horde mode in Gears of War. Oh man, it was
Mm.
so good, especially Gears of War 3. It was awesome. That's definitely something we're gonna do soon. We're gonna go through all the
those,
Gears
yeah.
games and co-op on stream.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
that'll
that's
be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yours games are dope. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're great. For some reason, they're huge in the Latin American community too.
Yeah.
It's because of Dom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you could tell when you're playing online and you see all they would always have flags that you could put up on your profile, and it would be a ton of Mexican.
Yeah, and they have a
Flags.
lot of like professional tournaments in Mexico and South America. So that game
Mhm.
was really big in Central and South America. I was always like, oh, that's cool.
Mhm.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
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 Josiah's a PlayStation guy. He's never played them.
Yeah, it happens. I like
Well,
PlayStation
actually, I
too,
have played
but-
them with my brother-in-law. So
I'm shocked, but
Mhm.
you haven't played Halo.
Yeah. no, fuck Halo.
Oh man, no, Halo's great, man. Halo's classic. Halo's a great game. But it was that like I guess I like related with Jeremy too because he likes Halo. He's a Titanfall guy. Titanfall was like my favorite
Titanfall was
shooter.
awesome.
Yeah, it was the best shooter I was ever at of all time. Like that was the game where I would drop like 20s and 25 kill matches like consistently. And I loved it. Just because it combines so many awesome things. It was just too difficult for people. I guess people couldn't handle the wall running and being able to shoot. And I was like, as somebody that grew up on like classic Unreal Tournament and Quake and things like that, I'm like, this is the closest thing that you're going to get to it. And it combines like a modern military shooter with the crazy arena shooters of the past, plus giant robots that are badass. So I was like, how much more can you ask for? This is like the perfect combination of games. And especially in the first Titanfall, the maps were incredible. They were some of the best multiplayer maps I ever.
I really love complex movement systems. So when Apex came out, I'm like, this is going to be amazing. It's going to have Titanfall movement. And that not having that, I think, is such a distraction. Now, I can understand it, though, with controllers. It's like, if someone's really bouncing around all over the place and the turning and stuff isn't great, but I come from like Quake 3 Unreal Tournament kind of days, and so anything like that, I think that's one of the great horrors of like the early 2000s is that all of those games just vanished. Just got a lot more simple, run-of-the-mill, generic kind of stuff.
Well, I'm
so good.
I'm a chronic running gunner like that. If my style, if I can just like move everywhere and constantly be on the move, I much prefer that. Like I get mad in Call of Duty like if they're slow. Like if you're like when we went from Advanced Warfare and like how cracked the speed was in that to like I don't know Vanguard, you're like, wow, my guy can run in the straight line. That's awesome.
And you feel helpless too. You feel absolutely helpless because you're like, there's literally nothing I can do right now.
God damn! And then he's like, I'm moving as fast as I can, bro. Yeah. Or like Modern Warfare, where you like used to be able to like if you like put on like lightweight pro and you could like run into a room and stab 3 guys before they could get a shot off because they're like, what the hell is happening? Like I miss that kind of stuff. And so yeah, when Titanfall came out, you could run up walls and constantly just moving everywhere. It was like almost like rewarding you for constantly staying on the move. I loved it. I was like, this is great, you know, but yeah.
That's why I love Black Ops 3.
Oof. It was too slow.
That's the whole difference, though. Movement mechanics like that separate, like it increases the skill cap, so it separates the best players from the bottom ones. And they want everyone to be forced together. That's why you have loads of randomness and spread, because it makes people go coastal together. That makes it easier for them to do matchmaking and stuff. And it's like, well, everyone will kind of do about average. And this is why when I think about playing multiplayer COD now, I'm like, oh, really? Do I really have to? And it's like, if you could, like in Quake 3, I played that for like well over a decade. But it's because if you were the best, you could go like 51 and just annihilate people. But you did it because you were better than them. And that's like been stripped away from shooters.
Yeah,
they kill that competitive spirit too, because back in the day, like now it's like, well, if the game doesn't have good progression, it's gonna die. I was like, what happened to I just want to be the most badass player that kicks everyone's ass? Like that used to be the motivation.
Improve.
Yeah.
Like now, if you improve, everyone improves with you, so you feel the same. So when they removed the self improvement, they had to replace it with something, which was now you're grinding a battle pass, and guess what? You're gonna have to pay for it. And so they replaced the skill gap with give me money. It's genius, but incredibly Machiavellian.
Like in Black Ops 3, like I would dominate like every game that I was in, and it felt so good. And then when they started to put in SBM into some of the later Call of Duties, it's just I hate it so much.
Yeah,
so
it sucks.
Yeah.
It does.
That's where we're moving, man. That's what sucks about everything going free to play. I mean, that's why Halo Infinite's getting owned now, because it's like, well, you could have just said it's not free to play, and people would be like, oh, okay, so it doesn't have that much content. That's fine. But now, because it's a free to play game with a battle pass, there's an expectation. If you don't come out with the best content every week, like you're just going to get screwed, because now the industry is conditioned everyone to expect that. So it's not good enough that your gameplay is good and solid and that people like the competitive nature. It's like, no, if you don't have all these other things, your game is dead, and it really sucks.
It also wasn't good and solid, though. The hit detection on that was so awful.
Yeah,
like half your magazine would just go missing. And it's like, I'm sure I hit that guy.
Yeah, PC and the latency was bad.
And I hated like how they nerfed a lot of the guns too. Like the guns don't feel nearly as powerful.
Well, the plasma pistol, like it was supposed to, the plasma pistol, you always knew that you couldn't rely on it in like a straight up firefight if you're trying to tap fire it, but you knew that you could neutralize a vehicle, and that's why you would have a plasma pistol, so you could EMP a vehicle.
Yeah, or if like back in the day, if a guy came out around the corner with a plasma pistol charge, you knew what he was doing. He was going to shoot you, and he was going to punch you, and you were going to die. And like so, it rewarded different play styles a little bit more too. I mean, the shotgun back then, like because I know Disper didn't play like the shotgun. It was a one-shot kill. If it was a headshot, it was a one-shot kill. Like it was like you were just done. But if you see a guy with a shotgun, you could beat him with stuff because the shotgun was the answer to the sword. So it was like if you had a shotty, you could beat the guy with the sword. But like, I mean, nowadays it's like everything kind of evens out, and it's like this weird thing. I don't know. It's just
snipers used to have such a high skill ceiling too in that game because you could no scope, but the bullet also had travel time, so it made you feel so good when you could snipe somebody out of a vehicle because you knew you had to lead them perfectly, and it's just like
you had to actually lead your shots and stuff. Yeah, dude, Halo's just not what it was before.
I love a few weeks ago, Johnny and I went back and we played some Master Chief Collection. It was it was so good. Yeah, it really was. Like we should, Disper and Josiah should try that one day on PC. It just works out so well.
He won't do it.
So
I'm trying to get him for years. The thing is, we have to get everybody to shame him at once, and then he'll play one game of it, and he'll go, "I had a terrible time. I'll never touch it again."
Oh, that's how you do it. Oh, nice.
Now, if I had more people that were trying to shame me, then it probably would be less.
That's fair. I'm the only one shaming him right now. I'm the only one yelling at him about Halo right now.
So we're gonna have to have like a LAN party at one of the meetups, and then everybody's gonna bring Xboxes, and they'll be like, Josiah doesn't want to play. Okay, that's fine.
Well, no, I mean gaming just, I mean, as a whole, it does not reward being high skilled like it used to. It's just not the same thing. And the players from back then that were good, like even Halo players that were good back in the day, like playing it now, they're like, it's not the same game. It's awful. Like it's comparatively, the skill ceiling is so much lower. And like even Call of Duty, the fact that you have like, I mean, there was always guns that were slightly better than other guns, but the fact that you have a meta and that everybody will use the same gun constantly is like ridiculous. Instead of you being like, oh no, I can use this gun and like I'm good with this gun, and so I can get used to it or get solid with it. And it doesn't reward different play styles. It pretty much is like, oh cool, you either are a sniper or you're not.
Yeah, and that's I will say that's one of the things that I appreciated about Apex, at least in the early days when I was playing Apex Legends, was that when you land into a map, there are guns that are just complete crap. And then there are other guns that are actually like great guns. But that was kind of the fun thing about it, was that they weren't always trying to make the crappy guns, on that same level as all the great guns. It was more of like, if you landed, you didn't know what you were going to get when you landed. You could get a really shitty gun, or you could get like an amazing. Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the things that made Apex, at least when I was playing it back in the early days, more fun. I'm not sure.
You should drop with a pistol. Like that, but Warzone has ruined me for not dropping with a gun. If I'm running around going, I can't find a gun, I hate that in a VR.
Well, because Warzone was like, you got one now, and you're like, oh, this changes things. Yeah.
My favorite thing about Warzone, you get one plate, you get one gun, and you can just go and fight. Whereas everything else, especially Apex, like, well, I need this gun, now I need all of these add-ons, now I need all this ammo, now I need armor, now I need to upgrade there. And by the time you get into a fight, like 20 minutes has passed.
Yeah,
like, no.
I hate the fact that in Apex you have to get all the different attachments and all of that stuff. Yeah. That's annoying to me, but I do like the fact that there are guns that are spread throughout the map where some are complete garbage and then others are amazing. So
yeah, I actually am a collector in gaming. Like if I play Pokemon, I'm like, I'm that person who's like, I need to get every single one. So I actually like the looting aspect of of those games. So, but I remember I was watching Jay Hailstorm play a stream, and he was just bitching about the Apex. He's like, I can't find a gun. And then he was just very annoyed. So I could see, I'm like, oh, I could see that. Because if you're looking for something and then the fight starts, it's like, well, you're hosed unless you have all these attachments.
Well, and whereas like even Warzone, you're at a distinct disadvantage if you have a pistol. But if you're good enough, you can drop people with a pistol. I mean, you can beat a guy that has a good gun with a pistol if you get lucky, or if you can outthink them. I mean, that's the other thing too. I also appreciate games that reward you for thinking.
Yeah.
Because some games don't reward you for thinking; they reward you for like having the best gun in your hand at the right time and stuff like that. And one of the most frustrating things about Warzone was when the meta got so ridiculous that you had these guns that could just melt people as soon as you walked in the room. There was nothing you could do about it. If that guy had that gun and he shot first, he wins every time, even if they were garbage at the game and stuff. So I always appreciate it when there's like a wide like a swath of guns that can be used or different play styles. And at one point there was a little bit of that, like you had shotties and you had sticks, and like my buddy used to use exclusively like melee weapons on Warzone and do well. I don't know if he ever won with them, but he used to do well. Now they're like, no, that's not as fun for people to run in there and get hit with sticks. And I'm like, okay, but it's fun for some people. Like, walking into a room. I remember
the people using them.
That's fair.
So it's not.
That's fair. That's fair. But I appreciated it. Yeah.
Oh, I just got a one-shot kill, and the other guy's just like, oh, I'm dead. Okay, that's not fun. That's my favorite things about Fortnite no build, and especially Apex, is the time to kill. I think that's nailed. Because it gives you a bit of back and forth. You can get out of fight. Yep. If you're caught out in the open, you can still get to cover. So I would like, because that's why I liked Iron Trials and stuff in Warzone. I would like them to increase the
TTK. I think the TTK needs to be higher. Absolutely.
Iron Trials was the gunfights in the Iron Trials were so much more fun than they were.
I thought that's why Halo always worked out pretty well too, because you wouldn't just die instantly. They had one hit kill guns, but you had to be very good. Like you have to get a headshot with a sniper rifle. Rocket launcher's OP, but it only spawns like every few minutes, and you only get 2 rounds usually, so it's not too much. So it was really well balanced in that regard too. And I used to play SWAT too. I love playing no shields.
I was gonna say we used to play SWAT.
No shields, one shot, one kill. I always love those kinds of modes too. Golden gun mode and like Golden Eye, all that stuff. I always liked it because it's more like who's the fastest off the draw. So it's a very like Western style of shooting. Even though spawn camping could be atrocious with that.
The original Call of Duty, which I think was PC at first, PC only at first. I think I don't know what the name is on because I think it got ported over. But they used to have like bolt action rifles only, and they would just one shot kill. And everyone was jumping around, drop shotting people and everything. And it's like still one of the highest skilled modes I've ever played. And you there's nothing like that anymore. Everything is like designed differently. You can shoot someone from across the map. The only warning they get might be if you're lucky, scope glint, and then you're dead. And I was like,
Yep, exactly.
I think that the skill for like snipers and stuff needs to be a lot higher than it is, because that's the thing. The ADS and then even the like aim assist is so aggressive. Like it is. It's like you're just like aim down the sight and you're like, oh, I got a guy, bang, boom. And I hate quick scoping. It like there's nothing that's made me rage quit faster than like a guy standing there in a room, in the back of a room, and he goes dead, and I'm like. Fucking great. Okay, I guess the grenades I threw in that room didn't do anything. Like,
and it throws you off when either you've played older console games where auto aim is either non-existent or very minimal, because now it's like I know I can make this shot, but the game is pulling my crosshair to like center mass, and I don't want that to happen. Let me make the damn shot. I don't want the training wheels. I know I can do it, and then it screws you up. So like higher skill players are screwed too, because it's like that should be a one-shot kill headshot, but now auto aim pulled it to the body, so it's a 2-shot kill. So it's like I just died because of that. And then the dude that can't hit a barn just got the benefit of now he can 2-shot kill me too without any skill. So it's like, well, that sucks.
Yeah, it's awful.
I mean, some of the strongest aim assist I've ever seen was in Halo. I'm still amazed.
It can be.
It's just crazy, and it locks onto the head as well. That's what really gets me.
It's so
like when I was playing mouse and keyboard on Halo. As much as I ranted and raved, I got so destroyed at first. That might have been like the most on I ever was with my aim, apart from when I was a teenager and just played 12 hours a day. Because if I missed one bullet, I was dead, just because the aim assist was stupid. So yeah, that was tough. And I'd still be like, because to me, aim assist as a whole, I'd turn it off on everything. It may mean that controllers and PC just can't play together. I'm all for that. I'd be fine with that. But
I've always thought that I was like, you should just not let them play if they don't.
To me, if your control mechanism is so awful, you require the aim to aim for you, then you should work to improve the control mechanism. And I do think we've reached a point with controllers now where everyone's like, well, this is how it is. And no one's really trying to improve it or change it or see if there's alternate ways of doing things. And I still think there's room to improve, because if you still need aim assist to play, then
switch with motion controls, if implemented right, is the closest thing, because it gives you that one little second. Some games that implement it well, it really lets you get good headshots when you get good at it, because you use obviously the regular controller to get the joysticks to get you in the general ballpark, and then that one little flick will get you good stuff.
Well, you
so
also
that might be it.
Touchpads.
Touchpads work too.
They're they're as accurate as a mouse, and you can still put them on a controller.
Yeah. So and you saw Steam try to do that with their controller.
I saw somebody said,
but they were using it on PC. So
I know. They sold it to the wrong people.
Yeah. I saw somebody said get good game, play without aim assist. Thing is, you can't because you're at a disadvantage.
Some games don't let you turn it off either.
Yeah,
Some
like
games
you're
it's
at a
not an
disadvantage again. Like because me and Disbrew I've watched him play, and you are at a disadvantage because the person that's playing against you is locking onto you before you.
I could see it in the kill cam. You could see them, like it's perfectly tracked. I'm like, on a mouse, that would require incredible skill just to perfectly follow someone.
And that's why, like, some games you have to see, like, some games, if you're on PC and you use a controller, because it's a PC game first, it will not give you aim assist with a controller. So you can see the difference of how much you'll suck with a controller.
It's awful.
Yeah, and then other games, if you use a keyboard and mouse on console, it will have auto aim with a controller. So you have auto aim with keyboard and mouse, and it's ridiculous. So it's pretty
and a lot of games as well. If you turn it off, still actually there. It's just less.
Exactly. It's less sensitive.
So it is almost impossible. But this is what the difference between like Fortnite. I think one of the reasons I like Fortnite, and I don't think I've ever bitched about controllers in Fortnite, and it's just because the aim assist is a hell of a lot lower than it ever was in like Halo.
Yeah.
And in Warzone, I can't watch the kill feed because I will get annoyed when I just see someone perfectly track me from like 200 meters away. I'm like, that is ridiculous.
That's why every console player strafes, man. That's why you strafe all the time, because you're just getting pulled with it. So it's like, I don't need to do anything else.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think that's why a lot of people on Fortnite jump as well, because the aim assist tracks them quite well.
Yes.
Whereas if I'm jumping and they're jumping, I'm like, oh, this is gonna be tough.
Yeah.
So fighting them at range, though, I think mouse has an advantage in Fortnite for sure.
Yeah.
Somebody says Rainbow Six Siege on console doesn't have aim assist.
Yes,
yeah.
Some of the clips which have come out about that it kind of makes you realize why it's there. There are some crazy clips.
Two people walking right next to each other and they can't hit each other.
I've seen, right next to each other. They unloaded all of their AR, then they unloaded their pistols, then they reloaded, then they unloaded them again. Nobody's dead at this point. And this is Rainbow Six Siege, 2 bullets and you're gone. And it's like, it's one of the most hilarious fights I've ever seen.
It's like if you could throw the gun, you'd be better off at it. Oh, man, that's funny.
That's really fun.
But that is why, like if you go back in the day to like Quake 3, you'd still have like a melee weapon, but it literally, if you killed someone with it, it literally said humiliation. Getting killed with a melee weapon wasn't supposed to be the first choice. It was, you just got dumpstered kind of thing. But when controllers started to come in, they realized, well, it's really difficult to track people when they're that close to you. So then they changed it so that not only is aim assist on melee incredibly powerful, but they made melee incredibly powerful itself. And it is interesting if you look at how games have evolved specifically to adapt to controllers. When I think it should have been the other way around. You improve your control system so you don't need to change the games for it. But this is one of those things where you say that kind of thing and you have a load of people who love the controllers. It's like, no, it's all you, it's your fault. And it's one of those topics where you actually can't bring it up because I think people get really attached
about it.
Yeah.
I'm a controller guy too, but I used to play keyboard and mouse every once in a while because I want to try. I bought a keyboard and mouse specifically for my Xbox so I wouldn't have to switch between them, and I like it too. But now what I'm used to is I can't use regular controllers anymore. I must have a controller with paddles. I cannot survive without paddles now, because if I have to take my finger off the stick, I'm like, I feel that's a huge disadvantage. That you have to like, wait a second, I got to change my gun. I'm going to stop aiming here for a moment. It's like, no, I can't do that. I got to have paddles.
I saw it this morning. He was playing on that.
Fortnite. It was so, I was like, I was doing well, but it was the struggle because in the living room, I have a regular controller on that Xbox.
Yeah.
So I was like, you could see me like physically like suffering. I'm like, what do I?
Yeah, I really want to try paddles because I've never tried paddles before.
So good. It's a revelation.
Yeah, never
for
never.
a controller.
Yeah.
To me, it's like the halfway point. If you're a good player on a controller already, it will make you that much better because you don't have to take your hands off of anything and you just shoot the whole time.
Yeah.
So it's like the in between. It's the in between. It's the closest. It's the best you can do on a console.
Right.
I think Microsoft putting them on the Elite controller is kind of their admission that this is just better, and we probably should have had this on all along.
Right.
Yeah, and that's why now every like third-party controller has the buttons underneath now, and they have turbo controllers and all that stuff because they know it's easier.
Maybe I should get one.
I realize that like I need to because I know it's a lot better. I just got stuck on controllers, and like what's stupid is if I play a game and I start it out and I learn the control system, even if I go like, oh, these controls suck, and I switch it to something different, it takes me like days, if not more, and hours of playing to learn the new system. Because like when I switched over to like Switch for the first time, trying to switch controller, I was like, what is this? Hold on, wait a minute. And I switched the buttons, and I was like, cool, this is more like what I'm used to.
Yeah.
And then I kept trying to do it the other way, and I was like, but I hated that way. So why are you doing this? Yeah. So,
yeah.
And then like Fortnite, like I had my controller like crap out on me, and I was like, oh no. So I just switched to mouse and keyboard and started using mouse and keyboard, and I was like, my God, this is so much better.
Yeah.
But like my fingers are like, yeah, but you're not touching the controller, and I'm like, yeah, but that's good. And it's like, yeah, but like, I don't know.
Well, and you can't be as
same
casual.
reason.
You have to have better posture too when you're keyboard mouse, because you're like forced to be like, okay, now I have to like be like this and get. Whereas with the controller, I can be like,
yeah.
But you literally have muscle memory.
What a loser.
yeah, yeah, that's how you are. You're just sitting there like, yeah. So sometimes it's nice. Like I'll switch between both. Like if I want to be like really serious, I'll do keyboard and mouse. And then when I'm like, I'm just chilling out, man, I'll just sit with a controller on the couch, and it's a great experience.
To me, I'm like, Mike, I can't, like, when every time I switch from I mean, I don't know if you, wait, who was on Splatoon that night? I was like, I forgot how to swim.
Because A and B are reversed. Yeah.
I was like, I forgot how to freaking hold this thing, but there's literally like muscle memory and neural links. So it's like, even though Rolando explained to me, he's like, okay, on the paddles, it's this. And I'm like, I can't do this. And I just
because you never use these fingers underneath.
I'm like, I can't do this. I don't have those neural links, and you have to build that connection. That's why we can type without looking.
Yep.
So
That's something.
I have to work pretty aggressively to get past that. Go ahead, Josiah.
Yeah. No, I'm kind of the same way. Like when I was in my early days of Call of Duty, I always just played like on the default like button layout and stuff. But then started to watch like YouTube videos, and everyone's like, "Oh, you gotta switch to like tactical or whatever it's called." And I was just like, "But I don't want to." Even though it's like it just switches like two buttons, like it switches like crouch and melee.
Yeah.
But I was like, I don't want to do that though. So I've
it's like people do bumper jumper.
I've literally been playing it on like this is like the normie setting that nobody likes to use. Because I refused to switch. They're like, but you could be better if you didn't. And I'm like,
whenever I watch people play with paddles, I'm always like, I wish I could play like that. So it's probably
it takes getting used to, and at first it'll be a little bit uncomfortable because you can't fully grip the controller at that point because you have to like float holding those buttons. But then when you do it, like I can't hold like a regular Xbox controller anymore because it's like, no, my hands don't have to grip it all the way. Like I can't do that. So the Elite controller for me is like game changing. And now that consoles can do like high frame rates too, like 120 hertz. Like, that's huge too. Like I think that makes a huge difference in competitive gaming that people don't understand, like what a high frame rate can do for you.
Right.
The weird thing is with frame rate, when you go up from 120 to 240, some people notice it immediately, but I was never that
it's not that
bothered
much.
by but the interesting thing was especially on Overwatch, although unless I actually scanned for it, I didn't notice it, I was hitting shots that amazed myself. Like flick shots of someone coming around behind you, like wow, okay, I didn't think I'd hit that. And it's like your brain works a lot faster than you consciously think about. And so I think it still annoys me that we focus on like shiny graphics more than frame rate, because I think overall it'd be a much better experience for everyone.
I moved away from that this time around because I was like, so do I want like a 4K monitor or do I want a really high frame rate monitor? So I gave Joe the 4K 60 monitor on her Xbox.
Thanks.
And that was like I bought myself a 1440p like 165 hertz monitor instead, and it's just so much nicer. It really is. Even running like a 3080 or something like that you could run 4K 60, it's like, no, I'd rather have as many frames as I can possibly get at this point.
Right.
Well, that's what I run 1440 240 hertz. So I think 1440p is definitely the sweet spot.
I when got my new computer, and the frame rate on this it goes up to 360 and it's like 1080p. And then I got a 4K monitor with 60, and I was like, what's the big difference? And then the first time I was like, okay, I'm not going to game on my big monitor. I'm going to game on my laptop. And like the first time a guy came around the corner, and I just like dropped him. And I was like, all those years I was complaining, it was something wrong. Like,
you're literally getting like 4 times the information. Like most console games used to be 30 frames per second. Now when I see 60, it looks like 30 to me, which I never thought would happen. But it's just crazy because you're literally going from 30 to like 120, you're getting 4 times more frames. That's more information. Whereas your mind had to almost like, your mind is smart enough to eventually that 30 frames starts looking smooth to you because your eyes, your brain is adapting and basically filling in the gaps. But when those gaps don't need to be filled, it's amazing because it's just like point and click.
And it's not just like on flick shots. where you know you're scrolling around and someone might drop behind you or something, which was common in Overwatch. But even just on a corner, if someone's coming around a corner, every frame you're waiting for that to update for him to appear is time he's already seen you and can start shooting you.
Yes.
So you actually see him a lot earlier on faster frame rates and stuff.
Yeah, I was shook. I couldn't believe it, and I was like, "Disprove was right." And then one time I switched over. Yeah, one time I switched over to like mouse and keyboard on like Call of Duty, and I didn't know any of the controls. All I had was my mouse and moving it around and shooting people. And I was like, oh my God, this is so much better. Like, it's so much faster to like snap on a person and stuff like that. But like, well, the accuracy is the biggest thing. Like, I'm like, oh, like I'm just pointing and clicking at this stupid guy. And versus like controller where you're like, okay.
I see people on Fortnite like lining up for shots. I'm like, oh, go.
And for me, it's like once you get your keybinds right, because it's like you've got multiple buttons on your mouse, man. That's just like a controller now. So you just translate that over now. It's like, oh, I really don't have to use a lot of keys with my left hand, because if I program my mouse to have some of those functions that I do all the time, like crouching or jumping or sprinting, now that's taken away the difficulty. So really, I'm only using like Shift and WASD or Control on my left hand. So that brings down like the skill gap on PC, because people just get overwhelmed. Like, oh, how do I've got to move like my fingers diagonally to hit these keys. And I was like, yeah, you could do that, or you can have your mouse like take off some of that and use that thumb that's not doing anything now.
Right.
Yeah, it changes your life.
The only really complicated bit with mouse and keyboard is literally getting used to moving a certain distance to move on a certain, and that's just comes with time. And you will be trash at first, but it's like stick with it. A few hours in, and you'll already be massively improved.
Yeah, and you just start slow. Start with a really slow mouse turning rate until you get used to it, because being able to turn around instantly is a huge like, whoa, I can't do. How is this possible? Like I can shoot somebody behind me like the second that I hear them instead of turning around. Like a truck. It's like, yeah, you can do that.
See, I'm the other way.
I want to get there. I swear to God. Yeah.
I'm the other way. I'm like, pick a sensitivity and stick to it, because then you build multiple memory.
Well, that's true. You can do that. Yeah. I started slow and moved it up, and now I have it pretty like
I started, but yeah, with Call of Duty, I think mine's at like, I don't know, it's like 4 dots below the highest, like, because some guy was like, dude, you can turn faster if you do that. So I just turned it up really high, and I was terrible in the beginning, and then I just got used to moving that.
Yeah, mine's usually at like 12, I think, on Call of Duty. So
because it's like
I keep mine like 3,500 or 4,000 DPI is usually what I do when it like shifts over.
It's nuts. But,
Radio, thank you so much for the $10 super chat. It's been enlightening and hilarious tuning in to y'all. Thank you so much. Appreciate.
Well, you don't need any help with playing video games, so
I know.
Radio is the closest person I found that plays like I do with my playstyle on Fortnite. I said I've only played with it once, but it was one of the best times I've had, and I still remember everyone else was running from the gas, and I'm like, no, I'm fighting these people. I'm not. I refuse. So I'm fighting on a hill, and she realizes I've stayed behind to fight him, and she gets in a cannon and fires herself back into the gas, lands on them in the middle of like 3 teams fighting, and we win the fight and then drive out of there. It was incredible.
Well, that was one of the challenges Joe noticed today, walking away from an explosion that you caused. So like Hollywood style, shooting something, setting it on fire, and turning around and walking away was one of the challenges in Fortnite. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. No, it's kind of nuts. And Radio's like, oh, I'm not that. I'm like, no, you are. Yes, you are.
She's fantastic. She's amazing.
She did that. Like, she did that by default. Yeah, I just killed like 10 people. So
anytime you are brought up in any stream, even if people like most obscure channels are like, oh, it's Radio. Yeah, it's just really freaking good. Same with Disbrew, but at this point we're just mad at him about it, because we're like, oh, wanted to try out this obscure shooter that you've never touched before, and he dropped like 50 kills, and you're like, cool, I've been playing this for years, and we
were playing Splatoon. It's like, I just do not use controller. I haven't used controller in like decades, since Battlefield 4, and it was like, you're really good at this. I'm like, it's more positioning. I don't know how to use a controller. But yeah, just great. Fortnite just before I was playing with like Blabs, X-Ray Girl, and Raging Rhino, and I got 18 in the first game.
Nice. Amazing. That's how it was when I played with them too. I think I had a 17 kill match with Tugs, and
the matchmaking in Fortnite is you don't get that in Warzone. That will match you to the highest person in your group.
Oh yeah.
Fortnite, it's like
No,
Let's
Lois.
just give you an easy mode.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like sometimes I'll play with my daughter on Fortnite, and it'll be like me and 2 of my buddies, and then my daughter, and she's the one that completely just brings down the entire skill-based matchmaking.
Yeah.
And you're just playing against absolute potatoes. It's
Oh,
hilarious.
just destroying people, and they're like, and you're not even close. There's nothing. Like even like you get to the last guy, and he's like hopping behind a tree. And they're like, nah.
Then you get with clearly like the cell phone lobbies where you can see the dudes are like. They're like, they look like they're drunk and they're like flying around like this and they can't hit you. Like you literally walk up to them. They have a shotgun. You can drop everything. They won't hit you if you let them shoot the entire magazine. And it's like, no, man,
boom,
I'm done.
Have you played on cell phone? It's really hard.
It is hard, but see, I played on cell phone with an Xbox controller, so it's cheating because then you dominate everybody else.
Yeah.
It's like when it first came out on Switch and everybody's playing on handheld. I was like, you know what? I'm going to try it on Switch, but on a monitor. And it's like you trashed everybody, even though it still sucks and it runs at like 720p with like 30 frames per second. But just having the that difference between handheld and monitor is a big deal.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's funny. So
yeah. Well, I think we'll probably go ahead and wrap it up there.
Yeah, we went almost 3 hours. That was awesome.
Yeah. No, thank you so much, guys, for coming on. Really,
awesome.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun. Appreciate it.
Yeah. We don't talk about guns a whole lot, so it's always awesome to kind of diversify some of our conversations that way and stuff. So, really appreciate it. So. I know that Ruthie's been dropping links to your channel in the chat, so make sure that you go subscribe to them over there at Locked and Loaded Latinos. So, what do you guys have going on besides obviously?
We normally do a show on Sundays, but Joe's traveling this week, unfortunately. So hopefully tomorrow when she travels, she'll get to do a video for park hopping because she's going somewhere and there's a park very close to her client.
Yes.
So she's like, this is an opportunity I don't want to lose. So if the weather's good,
it's not going to be good. So I'm going to be like, it's going to be awful. It's going to be raining. And I'm like, I don't care.
But she's going to be like, this park is awesome because they don't close their roller coasters in the rain. So she'll be able to tell you that. And then when she gets back, we'll do a show. Obviously everybody's out. So I'm trying to do a couple of Geeks and Gamers play streams while everyone is out. So obviously you guys, I'll let you guys know if you want to join in on that. And that's pretty much it. And I'll do streams on our own channel, Locked and Loaded Latinos, either on YouTube or Twitch. I usually go between them every other stream I go between the two.
Gotcha.
So,
awesome.
Joe just started a Mass Effect playthrough.
Yes.
She's never played Mass Effect before.
Oh, nice.
Yes. So at first she was like getting used to the controls. It was weird, but now she's finally got it down. And she's like, I was like, it's like Gears of War, but with Jedi powers. And
I didn't realize that you had equipment too. I kept picking stuff up and he's like, you can change your guns and your armor. I'm like, what? So now it's even more
because she saw me play, but she saw it more as a third person shooter, not the RPG aspect.
I also saw it like a movie. Like I don't know. I wasn't really paying attention to the gameplay or anything.
So but now she's got it down and I think she's gonna like it. And her femshep looks really good too. She looks like Cara Dune.
I don't like the standard one. It's just like,
I know she looks weird compared to male Shep. She's totally whack. So
So I'll get
That's
back
awesome.
to that and stream that when I get back in town. So I'll be playing that later next week.
That's awesome.
Cool. That's awesome. And then obviously go check out Disbrew, who's still just crushing it over on his channel.
Crushing
and everything. So which is awesome to see.
I got my first video to 250k.
Wow, that's awesome.
It's one of the strangest videos I've ever seen. It went up for like a day and then just flatlined. I'm like, well, that video's died, and then took off, and it was like they just YouTube was broken for a day, and then it carried on as if it never stopped, and just didn't stop afterwards. I have no idea what happened to that.
It's so weird how that is, man. It's so weird how that works.
Yeah, closing on 50,000 subs, man. That's awesome.
That's amazing. That's awesome, dude.
Yeah,
super happy for you. So, and then Mike, you got any streams going on this week or anything, or?
I don't know. I might stream later today. I gotta see if I got time. I also gotta work tonight. But yeah, you can check me out on Twitch as usual. Because I haven't started a YouTube channel yet. But I'm closing on 900 followers already. I've only been at this about 6 months now, so it's been fun.
Yeah.
Hoping to get to 1,000 and then see where we go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So thank you everyone for coming out. We appreciate you all, and we will catch you all in another stream next Saturday. So make sure that you check us out. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of your weekend. Bye.
Take care, everyone.